Before the summer solstice arrived, I received a breakup text from Ethan Sullivan. He was concise, yet showed a hint of avoidance, afraid to face the choice head-on. He dodged all words that represented separation, simply saying, "Our relationship. I don't think I can keep going." This was the first time in my life my mind went blank. Mind going blank? A phrase frequently found in romance novels and literary works. I had often pondered what that experience was like. Was it the lightning-like intracranial glare when a plane plummeted, or the sudden disintegration of sanity upon learning a loved one was critically ill? They all seemed related to near death. But a true blank mind was more like being killed instantly by something. I got distracted at an inappropriate time. It wasn't until the space between my eyebrows began to twitch uncontrollably that I was reminded to respond quickly. "Do you want to break up?" My cheeks burned as I drove my left thumb to type on the screen. Before sending, I deleted the "do you" to feign calm. "You want to break up?" Ethan replied. "Yeah." That wasn't a yeah, but a second bang, creating an even larger cavity in my head. I continued to ask, "Why?" He said, "Tired," and added, "Not that much love left either." Ethan's good habit of replying instantly continued, but his tone had become extremely unfamiliar. "Okay, let's break up then." I typed the next words, my whole body numb, as if another person were speaking in my place. The typing indicator at the top of the chat box appeared and disappeared, repeating 3 times before going silent, as if waiting for me to add something. Only when he was sure he wouldn't get anything else did he send the new, colder content. "I'm not joking, and I'm not being emotional." I quickly replied, "Me neither," even though something scorching was already filling my eye sockets, ready to overflow at any moment. When the words, "That's good then," popped up on the screen, I blinked, letting the tears stream down. The day before Ethan formally proposed the breakup, I had never thought he would leave me. The scenes I had imagined regarding our separation were of him or me holding each other's withered hands with our last remaining strength on our deathbeds. No, I should be the one to go first, because in my consciousness, he would never leave me first. Ethan and I had been in a relationship for 5 years and 3 months. During this period, he never once initiated a breakup, while I was the exact opposite. The number of times I proposed breaking up could apply for a Guinness World Record. The reasons for breaking up were trivial, simple, bizarre, and even childish. For example, he fell asleep instantly and didn't reply to my message. Or in winter when we slept under the same duvet, he said my icy feet cut him like knives. Or when he said the dishes were just average at a hyped-up restaurant I had painstakingly selected from Instagram, and I would usually equip them with high-sounding reasons. Didn't reply to messages, "You've started giving me the silent treatment. If you want to break up, just say so." Disliked my cold feet, "You're nitpicking now. If you want to break up, just say so." The restaurant wasn't good enough, "You're questioning my taste. We can't eat together anymore. If you want to break up, just say so." Every time this happened, Ethan would always hug me tight, swearing he would never leave me. I was also convinced that Ethan Sullivan was my most faithful believer, and I was the Pope. I would forever enjoy absolute authority. This confidence continued until I got up the next day. I picked up my phone as usual and tapped on the pinned profile picture. My heart cooled at an imperceptible speed. Ethan hadn't sent me any messages. No "good morning," no plea for reconciliation, let alone his past expertise in pestering me, or the occasional stroke of genius, a stepped-down ladder that would make me smile knowingly. The conversation remained on the temperature less, "That's good then." During the 30 seconds of microwaving my toast, my gaze lingered on the chat interface, desperately suppressing the message I wanted to confirm. "Are you for real? Do you really have no emotions?" The terrible thing was, I did. Hidden anxiety was like ripples on the water surface, amplifying. Fortunately, work temporarily cut everything off. But leaving the office in the evening, that invisible soundproof curtain disappeared again. On the subway, a couple stood in front of me, likely college students. The boy held the hand ring, and the girl used him as a support. They looked simple and intimate. The boy even had some acne on his face, very much like me and Ethan in our junior year. Simple. Why would I use such a word? Even more bizarrely, I involuntarily opened my phone's front camera and started looking in the mirror. On the screen, my skin texture was modified to flawlessness by foundation, and the newly bought glueless false eyelashes were firmly stuck to my eyes. I arranged my bangs, having already become the urban beauty I had most wanted to be in the past, exquisite down to every strand of hair. I was so pretty. Immediately after, I subconsciously asked, "Selfie." That sticky, slight, word-by-word, lamb-like voice popped out almost reflexively. It was as if, at this very moment, Ethan was right beside me, singing praises for my face, squeezing into the frame, making faces, willing to sacrifice his handsome face to be my background board. I completely forgot he wasn't there. What responded to me was the unchanging, perfectly enunciated next station announcement in the carriage. I observed the passengers around me, awkwardly and helplessly turning off my phone. On the first day of losing Ethan, I was already unaccustomed to this loss. By the second day, the third day, unaccustomed evolved into disbelief. Although similar emotions had flashed suddenly the moment I saw his breakup text a few days ago, at this moment, it triggered more negative expressions, the clearest being anxiety and anger. How could he treat me like this? The silent treatment in a relationship was my exclusive patent. He had promised never to use such means against me. Anger was like a switch, and my head felt like it had been run over by a very long train. By the time I reacted, I had already sent him a message. "Are you still alive?" I was very good at saying sweet things, but also very good at saying nasty things, especially when arguing. Even though my will was advising me not to be a slave to emotions, that gentle words might turn the tide, my actions were faster than my thoughts. I was the strict executor of, if I'm not having a good time, don't you think about having one either. The moment I asked, I felt regret as usual, but my pride didn't allow me to unsend it. What if he had already seen it? Spilled water cannot be gathered up. Withdrawing meant showing weakness. At worst, I could justify myself. Ethan's fine qualities vanished along with his decision. It also made me lose control. "You there? Where are you? Why aren't you replying to my messages?" Waiting for 15 minutes, reason completely gone, I started a voice call bombardment. 5 calls in a row went unanswered. Annoyance was red, unease was blue, pride was bright yellow. Mixed together, I was being swallowed by black water. 3 hours later, Ethan said, "I just fell asleep." The black magic dissipated, and I sat back on the throne in the cathedral. Relieved. This was Ethan. He couldn't ignore me. In the next sentence, he would ask, "What's wrong, babe?" For a breakup king like me, what harm was there in giving him a chance to experience it once? After all, we could always get back together. I calmed down, smiling, and looked down at Ethan's new message. "If you have something to say, type it. Don't call again." I froze, staring fixedly at that sentence for a few seconds. The presence of my nose suddenly became exceptionally strong. Since starting work, my memory had become a bit poor, often forgetting things. But in my impression, I was very sure Ethan had never spoken like this. In the first 2 years of our relationship, his enthusiasm for voice calls was like his daily need to eat and breathe. Even though we saw each other quite a lot during the day, and the frequency wasn't low. He was perennially nicknamed Velcro Boy by my roommates, showing how exaggerated this person was. He couldn't bear to hang up before turning off the lights, stubbornly insisting on sleeping on the call. I complained, sleeping on call consumes a lot of power, the phone gets hot, and the battery life will decrease. He said if we didn't connect, his lifespan would decrease. I deliberately asked him, why? And he answered that without me, it was easy to lose oxygen. I was grossed out, grimacing and making noises, then replied in surprise. We rhymed. He realized it belatedly. Oh, yeah. That night, he posted a screenshot of that chat to his Instagram stories, captioned with a quote, "I wish you and I were a song that never ends." Our mutual friends naturally filled the comments with sour remarks and vomiting emojis, but I looked at it again and again, smiling from ear to ear. I left a very sweet comment. "Disgusting," Ethan replied with 3 sun emojis. This content was from long ago and could no longer be seen. I lay in bed, staring blankly at his profile page. His wallpaper was still the silhouette of us together, him carrying me on his back. At the moment the red sun rose over Mount Rainier. It was a candid shot by a female tourist who airdropped it to us, excitedly and loudly saying, "You two are too beautiful." Ethan loved that photo to death, setting it as his wallpaper immediately. On the way down the mountain, he was like a child who had only learned one sentence, repeating many times that this was his life photo. I loved to be contrary. Shouldn't a life photo only have yourself in it? Only then did he have new words. My life has you in it. His social media was now very clean, set to only show posts from the last 3 days. I wasn't sure when he had set it to 3 days. A strange chill spread across my scalp. Yes, I hadn't paid attention to his updates for a long time, but I had never quit the habit of scrolling through my feed. If I unintentionally saw him, I would like it, treating him like every other friend or client, but I almost never clicked into his profile anymore. But when did this start? I began to ignore and forget him. Exiting his profile, I didn't reply to Ethan's seemingly mean and distant message, and of course, I wouldn't voice call him again. I comforted myself that this sudden rejection was normal. It wasn't like I hadn't had moments like this. During campus recruitment, I was burnt out looking for a job, while Ethan had already successfully secured his master's placement. It was during that time, overwhelmed, that I secretly moved out of our rented apartment off campus, stuffed my luggage back into the dormitory, and wandered aimlessly away from campus. Ethan returned home and called me in a panic. I didn't pick up, just like him tonight. I pretended to vanish from the face of the earth. Maybe he felt differently. The last runaway was back in elementary school. I lost my workbook. It vanished from my backpack into thin air, making me unable to hand in homework for 2 consecutive mornings. I dared not tell my parents, especially my father. I could imagine him scolding me, saying he was already busy with work and had to find time to worry about me. Of course, what he pulled out wasn't just time, but also his belt. Unable to hide it any longer, I chose to confess. The envisioned scene played out exactly as expected. After school the next day, I didn't go home. I walked along the main road outside the school gate, from the streets into the fields. I imagined I had walked very far, far enough to starve to death on the road. Far enough that my parents might see my emaciated little corpse a week later, weeping bitterly and regretting their actions. Later, as twilight closed in on all 4 sides, I realized I hadn't even walked out of the boundaries of this small town, because a blue 3-wheeled pickup truck drove over on the field. The headlights were blinding as it stopped beside me. The old man in the driver's seat stuck his head out, squinting to identify me. "Is that Min? How did you run all the way here?" He was my neighbor Grandpa. In that moment, I was both relieved and disappointed. Perhaps because I cried too miserably in the passenger seat, neighbor Grandpa decided to keep my secret, tight-lipped until he passed away 3 years ago. That night, shrinking my shoulders and neck, I walked through the front door. My family sat at the dinner table waiting for me. Mom cared about why I was back so late, saying they almost called the police. I lied that the workbook was lost for a few days, and I stayed at school to catch up on previous homework. Mom said, "Couldn't you bring the homework back to do?" I was rarely this brave. I was afraid Dad would hit me again. Dad laughed hearing this, chuckling, looking kind and benevolent. "The beating is over. Let's turn the page on this matter." Maybe it couldn't be turned over with me. That was why I used the same method to punish another person who made me feel dissatisfied. As for why I felt dissatisfied with Ethan, I couldn't clarify. That was the 4th year of our relationship, and 3 months of cohabitation made us as intimate as family. But when I returned to the rental, seeing him comfortably nestled on the sofa playing mobile games, I felt a tightness in my chest, to the point of a trace of jealousy. I was jealous of his effortlessness. His family background and past educational resources were far superior to mine, so he was so relaxed into a kind of superiority he probably couldn't even perceive himself. The way he rested seemed to mock my rushing and diligence. Seeing me standing in the entryway, Ethan tossed aside the cushion, ran over from the sofa to hug me, asking how my interview went as usual. I started to shed tears, unusually surging. I turned back into that helpless little girl in the passenger seat, sobbing, "So tired, I envy that you can still be a student." He patted my back. "You can take the postgraduate entrance exams too." I said, "I can't." He insisted, "You can." From the phone he had left on the sofa, the announcement of victory sounded. See, he could win even while AFK. I couldn't be bothered to argue anymore. I woke up with a start from the dream. It turned out memories would replay in the form of dreams. In the dream, I had a god's eye view, looking down at another me, walking alone on the park path. The phone buzzed incessantly. I desperately wanted to urge her, answer the phone, but I couldn't make any sound. Waking up, I touched my phone immediately, opening Ethan's chat interface and feed. No new messages, no changes. In the darkness, I heard my rapid breathing gradually slow down, finally becoming inaudible. 10 years ago, Grandpa could pick me up. 10 years later, Ethan naturally could find me too. He found me on a park bench. He knew me too well, and I deliberately stayed in a location he would consider. In the night, I met his tear-filled eyes, his anxious face, his worried to the point of angry words, and my heart overflowed with the pleasure of success. The revenge that couldn't be realized was realized on him. I circled a kind of completion for my past self. I tossed and turned, so I got out of bed to get water. My head was heavy and my feet light. Turns out I had a fever. I remembered again, after being found and brought back to the rental that day, I also had a fever. After the fever reducer took effect, I was like a ball of tissue paper soaked in water for a long time, fished up, wrung dry, and softened a bit. I shared my childhood secret with him. Ethan succeeded neighbor Grandpa, becoming the third person in the world to know about my childhood runaway. I told the fear and despair of that day, and the biting winter night, in a tone like a stand-up comedy routine, like an embarrassing anecdote. Ethan leaned against the headboard laughing nonstop, saying I was too cute. After a while, his expression warmed. "Babe, apart from the part about being hit, the rest should be beautiful, right?" I nodded. In the night sky that day, there was a very beautifully shaped crescent moon, accompanying me from beginning to end. That was the only beautiful part. While Ethan was the exact opposite, loving me was perhaps the only trouble in his life. I pondered until I heard birds singing, before remembering when exactly I started to stop paying attention to Ethan. It must have been after he stayed at the university for his master's, and I entered this foreign enterprise. His master's dormitory was on the far west side of the city, while I got a new place in an urban village near the company old. Small, with oppressive ceiling height and poor ventilation in the bedroom, the only merit being the lush green window view. He changed majors, and the research links he shared on his feed were like hieroglyphics to me. When I vented to him about difficult clients, his comfort was inevitably dry. We started a long-distance relationship within the same city, but we still maintained daily voice or video calls. I had forgotten what exactly was said in the voice call before the breakup, only vaguely remembering we had a quarrel that seems trivial now. That day my mood was leaning negative. When Ethan typed, "Babe, love you," as usual to say goodnight, I replied as if triggered, "You only pay lip service to loving me." Ethan's tone was a bit indignant and depressed. "At least I still say it. You don't even say it anymore, do you?" I retorted, "Isn't video calling every day loving you?" The imminent war was dissolved by a short blank of silence. Ethan seemed to have gotten used to me turning on self-defense mode in certain situations. He nudged himself. The content of the nudge was, "You should be grateful. He always lightly pared away my sharpness like in the game Fruit Ninja." I tried to smile but couldn't, sad and apologetic. "Sorry." He said, "Don't be sorry, rest early." This chat history stung my eyes. Clearly, less than a week ago, he was still saying he loved me. I clearly could have said, "I love you too," but what did I reply? Only tit for tat. While brushing my teeth, I couldn't help shedding tears. The bristles stimulated the root of my tongue, making me dry heave. The woman in the mirror was terrible and wretched, but I didn't pity her at all. After applying foundation, I controlled my tear ducts by constantly tilting my head back. Since moving here, I hadn't had time to buy an ear thermometer. Before leaving home, I could only test the temperature with the back of my hand to confirm if the fever had completely subsided. I longed to complain to Ethan more than at any moment in the past. "I have a fever." We were each other's first love. The first time I had a high fever after we started dating, Ethan hadn't dealt with such a situation. He bought a pile of cold medicine for me from Uber Eats. My roommate returned to the dorm and exclaimed, "Are you opening a pharmacy?" Especially when I woke up sweating on the top bunk, receiving his anxious barrage of messages. "Don't take Quake and ibuprofen together, babe. You didn't take them together, right?" "Minnie Dean, answer me, I'm worried." "Ah, babe, you just fell asleep, right?" I teased him, took them, roommate is accompanying me to get my stomach pumped. He actually believed it and called me. I heard his breathless voice. "Which hospital are you at?" I gasped faintly. "I am in bed." He still hadn't found the flaw. "Hospital bed." I restored my normal voice. "Dorm bed, duh." He scoffed, stopping himself from speaking. I was like a wicked witch. Nya nya nya. The anchor point of this memory was particularly specific, so I quickly searched for the chat history of that day. Sure enough, we had a text conversation later. I said, "You're not outside, are you?" Ethan said. I was about to sprint like a 100-meter dash to the south gate. At that moment, seemingly before taking the medicine, the cold was already cured. My boyfriend was so clumsy, loving me so clumsily and sincerely. I was the happiest in the entire universe. It wasn't that there were no disputes during our relationship. I had unilaterally deleted Ethan from WeChat friends several times. The reason I still kept all the chat history was that before deleting him, I would back it up to my computer. Although I mentioned breaking up 10,000 times, I never thought of truly separating from him. I bluffed about cutting ties, but in reality, I couldn't bear to part with everything about him, and this me that was related to him. I sat in the subway car with the corners of my mouth tilted up as if no one were around. Past chat content was like lozenges with sweetness, healing me. When exiting from memory and returning to the current chat interface, I realized this wasn't healing. It was detox. I panic searched for a tissue to absorb the wetness at the corners of my eyes. Lack of sleep and messy emotions made me forget to bring medicine to the office. In the afternoon, the high fever made a comeback, and I became in need of help. At the same time, I also realized that the subjects to whom I could confide my illness were practically nil. I couldn't post in the family group that I had a fever. Since leaving for school, I got used to reporting good news but not bad. I couldn't post in the dorm group that I had a fever. My friends were all busy normies looking out for themselves. I couldn't post in the work group that I had a fever. My dedicated and mean leader would probably just quickly put on a mask. The only person to whom I could righteously send, "I have a fever," no longer held a legitimate status. Turns out Ethan had carried me so many times. Why did I have to judge him acidly and untruthfully, attacking him? You only pay lip service to loving me. I took deep breaths, regulating the headache and heartache, and the blockage that emerged in my throat from time to time. The last time it was like this was during graduation season. I was anxious to the point of somatization tinnitus, back pain, acid reflux, and for this, I even underwent a painless gastroscopy for the first time in my life. While half asleep from anesthesia, Ethan's pleasant face flickered in and out, and I could sense myself smiling foolishly. After regaining consciousness, Ethan indeed asked me what sweet dream I had to make me smile so long. I answered in my heart because I knew you were there. But on the surface, I painted a pie and talked nonsense, dreamed you proposed to me. Ethan, who was squatting by the hospital bed tying my shoelaces, immediately raised his face. "I do," I muttered. "You're supposed to propose, okay?" Ethan said, "Yeah, I'm willing to propose." He said with certainty, "When signing the anesthesia risk consent form again, I hope the identity I introduced to the doctor is your husband." Why did I have to say such things, saying he only paid lip service to loving me? The fact was, he truly loved me, but I was always blaming him. I looked left and right, noting my colleagues' movements. I gritted my teeth, exerting force against something non-existent, or trying to find a suitable word in the screen full of English emails, as a fulcrum to block the bitterness, self-blame, and helplessness that wanted to burst out of my eyes. Finally, I found relax. I kept spelling its letters in my mind. I had been desk mates with Ethan on a vocabulary app for a while. It was during winter break, living in 2 different places. When connecting via voice call to clock in daily words before bed, we would always disturb each other, competing to see whose spelling voice was louder like elementary school students doing morning reading. Sometimes I got anxious and scolded him a few times, and Ethan would mute his mic and stay silent. He could memorize silently, but I couldn't. I had to read it out loud. Until one day we memorized the same phrase, and Ethan exclaimed in surprise, "I'm memorizing this too." That phrase was fairy tale. Fairy tale. A fabricated story. The power of high fever was fiercer than I imagined. After returning to the rental at 10 o'clock, I could finally sit at the desk, liberating my emotions while trying my best to suppress their noise. The soundproofing of the small room wasn't good. The flushing sound of toilets upstairs and downstairs could be heard clearly. After a quick shower, I took a painkiller and covered myself with the quilt. The world after lights out became lonelier than ever before. It was as if a part of my body had been hollowed out and filled with darkness. Holding my breath quietly for a while, my heartbeat was speeding up. I pressed my phone to light it up. I tapped on the WeChat pin. Doing the words and actions I tried to control all day to no avail. I sent a signal of weakness to Ethan. I have a fever. Thank goodness, Ethan replied quickly. Are you okay? Drink plenty of water. Relief and grievance gathered in my eyes. I pouted, then replied, okay. I began to wait. I wasn't clear what I was waiting for a full 2 hours. The contact method was still there. He had my current address. Just waiting like this until the heat dissipated from my body. My forehead was as cold as lying in a morgue, not even possessing residual warmth. Finally, I could only turn my head to one side, pressing half my face hard into the pillow, sobbing quietly. My body had always been a container filled with self-esteem, and now the water level mark was slowly dropping. The first to notice something was wrong was my colleague in the next seat. She liked to randomly grab a lunch buddy during the lunch break, and in the past, I often volunteered. When it came to eating, I had always been enthusiastic. But starting from the high fever night where expectations fell through, my appetite also disappeared from me, even fighting against me. How bad was it? Bad enough that facing my favorite pungent spicy noodles, nausea would surge for no reason. Food was no longer enjoyment. When they slid down my throat, bizarre thoughts would pop out. So this is the legendary maintaining vital signs. Mimi, what's wrong with you? My colleague leaned over to my desk. My name wasn't actually Mimi. When I joined and submitted my English name to HR for the badge, it was Minnie. It was this same colleague, at the Korean barbecue table during the orientation, who asked in a distinctive southern accent, jokingly, why I was called a knock-off Miu Miu. Everyone laughed wildly, and from then on, they all switched me to a new code name. Back then, even if I felt offended, even if discomfort flashed by, I chose to calm it down because I could feel this older sister meant no malice. Calling Ethan that night, I recounted the day's experience in a mocking tone. Ethan was laughing, and he also called me Mimi. My face immediately fell. Who let you call me that? My colleague could, but Ethan could not. When he called me that, I could guarantee there was no malice either, but why was I so repulsed? My colleague's inquiry interrupted my distraction. Her hand waved in front of my eyes. Sister, I'm asking you something. I looked at her. Nothing's wrong. She had piercing eyes. Not true, something's up. I instantly teared up. The southern sister panicked. Her gestures were always exaggerated, attracting several female colleagues working nearby to gather around. My cubicle was packed tight. I quickly pulled out a tissue to blow my nose. It's okay, just a breakup, I'm fine. Don't look, it's so embarrassing. I covered the intense sourness with a ball of tissue, smiling and telling them not to worry about me. Everyone didn't disperse because of this, speaking one after another. What's embarrassing about it? Everyone goes through heartbreak. Afraid you can't find a man? Our building is full of them. Exactly, you're free now. Hurry up and download all the social apps back. They were noisy. I was grateful. They weren't that close to me, nodding acquaintances. Even those lucky enough to be in the same group only talked about work topics. However, they would ask me what was wrong, noticing my strangeness, worrying about my situation. A huge gap filled me instantly. In the second week of the breakup, apart from the downturn and loneliness, I also felt a strange confusion. Confusion was pervasive. When I walked on the road, when I typed at the monitor, when I added noodle blocks to boiling water, when I checked out at the convenience store, confusion would suddenly cage over, covering me like gray fog. I soaked in the damp chill, gradually becoming sluggish and numb, even self-loathing. Maybe the phone eavesdropped on my conversation with my colleagues. The few apps I frequently refreshed started pushing breakup-themed posts, emotional mass tarot readings, and videos analyzing intimate relationships between sexes to me. Clicking into the first one led to a second, a third, an nth. Finally, my homepage was occupied by identical content. The pain of heartbreak was always so similar, and the rhetoric in the short videos was basically the same. But I was addicted and couldn't stop, like running in a hamster wheel, ruminating on these single and short affect spiritual comforts. At these moments, I would feel slightly alive. Thus, the nights after work and the rare weekends were all wasted. Besides that, it was reviewing the chat history with Ethan. Sweet conversations allowed me to draw a small amount of vitality, but flipping to arguments, regret would gouge me like razor blades. I stalked all his social apps multiple times a day, completing secret patrols and confirmations, finally feeling slightly satisfied. The most suffocating times were waking up and before sleeping. Waking up meant facing reality, but falling asleep was so difficult. At the quietest moments, loneliness and torment would magnify tens of millions of times, howling or roaring in my ears. It was strange. The person I almost tossed to the back of my mind before the breakup received 24/7 attention after the breakup. The reaction that disgusted me wasn't just this one. Before this, I seemed never to have felt such repressed and bloated sorrow. Being scolded by parents, at worst, I'd build up a burst of stubborn energy. Falling out with friends, I could console myself that those with different paths don't make plans together. But facing Ethan, I couldn't be at ease. Ever since he vanished from my life, my theater was emptied. The laughing and cursing lost all audience. I had never been this weak and blank. I needed Ethan. Immensely, urgently, strongly needed him to come back to my side. Otherwise, I was going to die. It was too shameful, but I really seemed to be walking toward demise. If I didn't get him back, perhaps I would die. Even if I was still alive, working routinely every day, completing tasks that got praise from the team leader, I could feel something inside, flowing away like grit day after day. On the 12th day of the breakup, I sent Ethan a message. "I miss you. I don't want to be apart from you." 2 sentences, using up what little strength I had left. After sending them, the string that had been taut for a long time finally snapped. I nearly collapsed, tears falling like rain. "I don't want to be apart from you." This was the first time I said such words. Before this, similar rhetoric came from Ethan's mouth. His belief and firmness in love far exceeded mine. While I avoided love, he was always defending it. Excluding that runaway incident, a year ago I caused a relatively serious breakup. It was also summer, a similar month to now. I had just started my job and was assigned a pile of miscellaneous tasks. I was still an intern then. While annoyed, I could only comply. After submitting the daily report after work, I cooked shin ramyun for myself. Carrying it to the desk, I video called Ethan with joy. I wanted to show off my newly learned supreme cooking method, then watch him puff his cheeks like an anxious squirrel in envy. Damn, can't eat wifey's handmade ramen. So annoying, so annoying. He declined my video request and instantly replied with a short video shot on WeChat. Having dinner with the boss and seniors. Text followed closely behind. The frame showed an elegant Western restaurant booth, sapphire blue tablecloth, dim lighting. I noticed a small 4-inch creamy white cake placed in the corner. I asked curiously, "Whose birthday is it?" Ethan replied, "Babe, today is my birthday." My face started to prickle and go numb. I forgot why we argued that day. Emotions were very blurry. After the breakup, all the good became better in my mind, like pasting a layer of sunset-colored filter, while all the bad was cleared with one click. While waiting for Ethan's reply, I carefully reviewed it. That night, I knew my sin was unforgivable and apologized immediately. But when I started to explain my negligence, Ethan said, "Stop making excuses." Subsequently, I was provoked. In the dispute, we viewed each other as a mortal enemy, tearing and wrestling with words. Whoever made the other get down first was the winner. The battle ended when I was too tired to type, holding down the voice bar, crying and shouting. "Then let's not date anymore if you can't stand it. Don't date. Do you think I wanted to forget on purpose? I'm hurting too. If you're so dissatisfied, just let me go, okay? Find a perfect girlfriend who can respond to you anytime, anywhere, think of you, and won't forget every special day. I just can't do it. Work is so tiring. Do you think I'm still a student? Like you, having so much time and energy. If you're so unhappy, let's just break up. Scatter at once anyway. It's no different from being separated now. Just break up. Separating won't have this anymore. No trouble at all." I was incoherent, disordered. Then I cut the call, making myself disappear, ignoring all of Ethan's replies and voice messages. I clearly perceived that I hated myself for forgetting such an important day. That hatred for myself transformed into kinetic energy outputting outward. My combat value maxed out in an instant. In my hysteria, I placed the biggest bet since falling in love with him. I bet I was the winner. Facts proved I was indeed the winner. Ethan immediately took a taxi to my place. When that cake was presented before me intact, I almost thought today was my birthday. Before blowing out the candles, he softly spoke his wish. "Hope we are still together at this time next year." I pouted tearfully. "With me, this bad woman?" He nodded heavily. "With you, this bad woman." The firelight in his eyes looked like golden tears. Half an hour of sitting on pins and needles later, Ethan replied to me with 3 words. "Don't be like this." The prickly feeling on my face appeared again. Turns out, not being beaten by parents in adulthood was because sooner or later you'd get slapped somewhere else. I took a deep breath and asked as calmly as possible, "Besides being tired and not loving me that much, is there a more detailed reason?" Ethan said, "I don't know either." I fell silent. The chat box was also dead silent. The position of my lips was trembling. I encouraged myself, since I've asked, be brave and clarify everything I want to clarify. I asked, 3 days before bringing up the breakup, you were still saying you loved me, so you were acting then?" Ethan denied. "No." And the thought of breaking up, did it also appear suddenly that day? To be honest, no. I sat there, my spine pressed straight against the chair back, yet I felt the floor tilting. "Then when was it?" Ethan replied, "Forgot." The accumulated desire turned into rage in an instant, burning hot. "So you wanted to break up long ago?" "Not really, it only appeared after the new year this year." Ethan's indifference carried a bit of indifferent calm. They increasingly highlighted me as a shrew ready to pounce. When exactly? Ethan was quiet for a moment, then told me. "There were 3 consecutive nights when video calling me, you were drying your hair." I struggled to recall for a moment before capturing exactly what he was referring to. A node that was crucial in Ethan's eyes hadn't left any trace with me. I reflexively retorted like in the past. "Then when should I dry my hair?" I had no choice. After transferring to the new project team, my overtime frequency became very high, often leaving the company after 10 p.m. I'd eat something on the way, wash up after getting back, and it would be almost 11:30 p.m., not to mention the occasional unfinished work. When I finished dealing with everything and managed to check WeChat, sending Ethan a cute sticker to start the daily love management game 1-1. And he immediately video called me. I really had an illusion Ethan was very much like a high-needs infant waiting to be fed, and I was an exhausted old mother who still had to find time to pump milk. Facing my rhetorical question, Ethan's response was, "That's the point." "What point?" "That it was all my own fault." I asked him, "Why didn't you say back then that you didn't want me occupying video time drying my hair?" Ethan said, "You were already very tired. I didn't want to add to your burden." I said, "So you chose to solve me. That way I have no burden and you won't be disappointed." Ethan's words were calm. "When things you always do to me, attitudes you show, happen to yourself, you can't accept it." My eyes widened abruptly, as if a fast wind whooshed through my eardrums, raising goosebumps all over my body. I asked, "What things, what attitudes?" Even though I already had the answer in my brain, Ethan seemed amused by my absurd kick-the-ball style of communication. His consistently cold emotion since the breakup developed sarcasm. "Are you serious?" I knew I was panicking, which was why I threw the things I couldn't grasp back to him, as if thorns grew on them. But when he forced my hand to touch them, I didn't even dare to look and surrendered immediately. I did have a lot of places where I was wrong before. Inhale, exhale. I reminded myself in my heart, "You are seeking peace, don't go hard." The more I say, the more wrong it is. I restrained more expressions, attempting to burst out. Unexpectedly, my softening actually triggered more and denser sarcasm from Ethan. "Minnie Dean, you are not wrong." "How could you be wrong? The fault is all mine. The one being scolded is always me, and the one bowing down is always me. A relationship is entirely a history of my confessions. Is it that you are too perfect or I am too terrible?" I was speechless. The words flying out of the chat list tangled into rolling stones, smashing right into my face and body. My stillness didn't make Ethan stop. He vented without concern, as if he would never again care how I viewed him, Every time we argue, you talk about tolerance. Have you ever tolerated me? Now saying you were wrong, lol. Still coming to ask me for reasons? You seriously don't know yourself. Wanting to break up the moment you're unsatisfied, isn't it satisfying you now? You always treat others like dogs, but won't allow them to want to be human. I stared unblinkingly at that couple profile picture of a puppy that hadn't been changed yet, accompanied by bubbles of black text on white jumping out one by one. They were disjointed enough to make my hair stand on end, my mind dazed. Ethan continued, "If you decided not to admit mistakes, then don't admit them forever. It's just that I couldn't hold on anymore. There will be other people who like you, tolerate you. Of course, that person can't possibly be me again. Separate, liberate. This is my only thought now. Minnie Dean, I implore you to respect my decision." At this moment, not only did the post-breakup Ethan become a stranger, but even I became a stranger to myself. The me in his mouth was me. Was I originally this ugly? Did he endure such an ugly me for so long? The me he loved, that me filled with joy when looking over, reflecting in his pupils, sparkling, who was she? I shuddered, coming back to my senses, realizing my face felt as if it had just been fished out of ice water. I sent over a sentence that even I couldn't make heads or tails of and was incomparably pale. I can change the time I dry my hair. The hobby of memorizing words didn't form after I entered university. If I had to pick a specific node, it would trace back to junior high. At that time, I had just come to the city to study, attending No. 4 middle school, which was at the bottom of the city rankings. But even ranking at the bottom, the quality of most students there was better than the town's central elementary school I attended before. From a chicken head to a phoenix tail, not only did I feel the drop, but my parents did too. Especially my dad. After getting the report card I clutched back during the winter break of 7th grade, the word he used to describe me most was waste. Wasted. A waste of a thing. Birthing a waste son at least keeps him in the family. A waste daughter can only marry into a waste family. With this rank, you might as well go collect scrap. If not for him, I wouldn't know waste could organize so many phrases. Even if waste became entertainment later on, inadvertently seeing it in titles or comments while scrolling videos, a small stream of vague pain would still surface in my heart. My junior high grades improved slowly. Math and Chinese were barely handy, but English always dragged my class ranking down to only the middle. Also because of English, whenever I went home for holidays, I would suffer a good beating from my dad. Once while being lectured in 8th grade, amidst the scolding, he intermittently slapped the back of my head. The force wasn't heavy, but extremely humiliating. I raised my hand to block in disgust, and his palm force suddenly increased. My face almost planted into the desk. After Dad left the bedroom, I continued to look down and do the English paper. The room after the storm passed was unusually quiet. A slight cicada cry suddenly sounded in my brain. It was early winter then. Thinking it was an auditory hallucination, I stopped writing. After confirming it truly existed, I was scared to the point of chills down my spine. To cover it up, I began to read the test paper in front of me out loud, reading every sentence, every word, every letter in it. The faster I read, the more rapidly I recited, the lighter that sound would become. Finally, it calmed down along with my heartbeat until it disappeared. From that day on, tinnitus followed me like a ghost appearing irregularly. After entering 9th grade, I was appointed as the class representative by the newly replaced English teacher. In sophomore year of college, I successfully applied for an English major-minor. Citing heavy academic workload, I never returned to my hometown again. I didn't dare to review the morning's chat history a second time, but the cicada sound appeared as expected. I looked at the ceiling light and began to ramble words: disaster, 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 disaster. Shatter, 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 shatter. Topple, 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 topple. Now I needed no reliance on any physical object or book to make the vast majority of words in the world dance freely in my brain. Think it and get it, like floating spells in Harry Potter. But I didn't get peace. Ethan's words squeezed my nerves, accusing me, yet seemed to overlap with the me from childhood. Those words I only dared to scream in my heart 10 years ago suddenly reappeared in a rude way on the person closest to me and whom I cared about most today, and the object of the scream was me. I was the seed of violence, and also the shadow of violence. I closed my eyes, warm liquid meandering toward my temples. It turned out I never got rid of my father. He was parasitizing inside my body in another form. In our freshman year, our dorm had a discussion about love. The cause was my roommate Mandy Summers crying uncontrollably at her computer for some reason. We gathered to care for her. She wiped her eyes indiscriminately with both hands, mumbling unclearly, "I was rejected by the guy I've had a crush on for 6 years." The state flow at the time was almost a one-to-one replica of me breaking down at my cubicle last week. Comforted by us, Mandy stabilized. Before sleeping, she sighed for no reason. Loving someone is so painful. The topic unfolded from there. Another roommate, Cynthia Zimmerman, was curious. "Have you guys dated before?" Mandy and Zoe Lane both denied it, but they had liked guys, had ambiguous experiences, and would change male candidates at different stages. I stayed silent in the dark, a smear of burning shame permeating my face. It seemed that compared to them, a very crucial part was missing from my body. Like a disability. This description seems exaggerated thinking back now, but that night, I really thought so. Not only had I never dated, I didn't even have a crush experience like Mandy. In middle school, I received kindness from peers of the opposite sex. Notes, paper-folded flowers, boxed yogurt, and the jeering of boys who completely disregarded others' lives. While vain, I felt uncomfortable. The emotion occupying the largest proportion was trouble, because I had observed my desk mate, who was in a puppy love relationship. Walking together after school every day, strolling on the playground during evening study breaks, going to eat Pizza Hut and McDonald's on weekends, dating for half a day. When did they do homework? At that time, inside a small head, there really were big questions. Not speaking in the bedroom talk session made it easy to be cued. What about Minnie? Why aren't you talking? I bit the bullet and lied, performing a void filling just so I wouldn't look like an alien. I liked a guy too. What was he like? Must be handsome. The virtual lover was born. He was okay, tall. High nose bridge, played basketball, teeth were very white and straight when smiling. Good grades. Listening to him talk made you want to smile. The most bizarre thing was, during the process of bullshitting, he actually formed an image in my mind. By the time I reacted, the apples of my cheeks were piled with smiles. My father was short and flat-faced, his teeth yellow from years of smoking. When he spoke to you, even without looking directly at him, you couldn't help but frown. Only by imagining in his opposite direction could one qualify to be the person I liked. Thinking this way, I naturally muddled through. Not long after the start of sophomore year, after texting Mom, "I have to study for 2 majors now, extremely busy, probably won't have time to come home before graduation. I'll take good care of myself, don't worry." I became the most relaxed person on earth. Mom had always been keen. She replied, "Min, Mom knows why you don't want to come home, but you have to believe Mom and Dad both love and care about you. We're just not that good at expressing it." Seeing the word love, my nose blocked up. Associating the image of Mom, who couldn't use pinyin, struggling to handwrite such a long paragraph stroke by stroke, I felt a bit sad. It was also at this time that I met Ethan Sullivan. New to the university, I had joined the campus Red Cross. Through 2 CPR trainings where I gave my first kiss to a dummy, I got a Red Cross First Aider certificate. At the start of sophomore year, major courses increased, and quite a few peers dropped out. I was among them. The president simply organized a collective farewell team building. That night, I had an elective course and couldn't participate in the dinner in time. I rushed to the second venue before 9 o'clock. Being the last one, only the seat at the edge of the sofa remained, separated from the karaoke machine by mountains and oceans. This made me very comfortable. Being tone deaf, I naturally had no intention of displaying my singing voice. So I sat there drinking water, eating popcorn, clapping occasionally to support, and scrolling through my phone whenever someone else sang. I thought tonight would pass like this. But soon, I noticed a guy I hadn't seen before. Because when he stood up, everyone on the sofa shrank. He took the microphone from someone else's hand, sat very neatly on a high stool, and began to sing. From then on, my gaze never detached from his profile. The fantasy object fabricated accidentally during the dorm chat a year ago instantly became concrete, came alive. I was amazed to the point of incredulity. He even made a sound, his tone very pleasant too. He was singing a Cantonese song, though I couldn't name it or fully understand the lyrics. I glanced at the projection screen and listened intently to the whole song. When the melody ended, the whole room was stomping and screaming. The guy glanced at the big screen, walked back to the coffee table and asked, "First Love, whose was it? Did he only sing this one?" Hoping to end quickly and leave, I suddenly felt disappointment. Someone moved towards the song selection machine by the sofa, causing his previous seat to be occupied. Having nowhere to go, he looked around the room, finally looking my way, and walked straight over. The sofa beside me sank, but my heart bounced upward, a very rapid beat, crashing until my brain buzzed like boiling water. While avoiding any eye contact with him, this very explosive guy actively turned his face to greet me. "Hi, you're from the Red Cross too?" I nervously pressed my fingers into the leather sofa to maintain composure. "Right." Then curious, "Are you Cantonese?" What on earth was I asking? He seemed to find it strange. "No, I'm local," I said. "Your Cantonese song was very standard." What was I saying again? He laughed, eyes curving. "Are you from Guangdong?" I shook my head. "No." His smile hadn't faded, eyes widening a bit. "Then how did you tell if I sang standardly or not?" I froze, embarrassed. "Actually, I can't tell. Just felt you sang very standardly." Actually, what I really wanted to express was, "You sing so well." However, as soon as the words fell, his smile burst open again like brilliant fireworks in the dim private room. After meeting that night, returning to the dorm, I received a WeChat contact card pushed by the vice minister responsible for me. "This mofo asked me for your WeChat." I replied. "Who?" For some unknown reason, I was 70% sure deep down who the mofo he spoke of was. I smiled without cause. The vice minister confirmed my guess. "The one who sang First Love tonight. Decide for yourself if you want to add him." I said, "Okay." After drying my hair, I leaned back in the chair, rubbing my hands anxiously, and sent the friend request. Excitement and fullness filled me. I peeked at my roommates with suppressed agitation, afraid they would discover, yet afraid they wouldn't discover. The missing place woke up, growing at a crazy speed. I was going to become the same as them. The guy's opening line was direct and friendly. "Ethan Sullivan, nice to meet you." He had a name as lush and green as himself. I also exchanged my real name, Minnie Dean. He asked, "Did I disturb you this late?" I hurriedly replied, No, didn't the minister give you my WeChat?" he said. I made him push me over. My social system wasn't comprehensive, especially facing the opposite sex. Is that so? The communication seemed to be pushed into a dead end by me. However, the other side caught it crisply and comfortably. "Yeah, so adding me or not adding me is your right." The story afterward was as tacky as other student couples. We chatted almost every day, occasionally meeting for meals and walks. During this period, I understood and empathized with my past deskmate. Turns out meal dates and walks didn't occupy time. They were more like fresh air in ascetic practice, stars in the long night. I didn't remember the date I added Ethan as a friend anymore, but there was a day that seemed impossible to erase from my memory. That day I was scrolling TikTok before sleep. In a short video, I heard familiar background music. I shared it to Ethan from the TikTok chat interface. At that time, our spark had lasted for many days, and we had just established a close friends status a week ago. Ethan replied with a speed comparable to AI most of the time, "What's up?" My ear temperature climbed weirdly. Listen to the BGM. Ethan said, "I know, I sang it on the day I met you." I couldn't help smiling, my chest gradually tightening. "Can I hear you sing it one more time? Just the chorus part." Ethan replied, "Wait a sec, roommate is asleep, going to the corridor." The text stimulated my imagination. I could imagine Ethan rolling out of bed, carefully closing the door, light-footed, sneaking out to the corridor. It projected in my mind like a movie, very sneaky, yet extremely cute. I was a thief too, pulling the quilt high to cover my mouth, snickering. The secret delight detained every time our eyes met was released at this moment. Ethan sent me a message again. "I'm out, don't know if a cappella sounds good. Don't despise it." How could I replied like taking an oath. "Absolutely not, don't worry. This must be the sound of nature." I listened repeatedly to that 45-second voice note with a suppressed voice, and after being satisfied, politely expressed gratitude. Ethan's reaction revealed puzzlement. Thanking for what? I replied to him, "Thank you for fulfilling my wish to hear you sing this song again." Ethan denied, "But this isn't helping you fulfill a wish." And added, "Instead," I stalled, repeating his words. "Instead what?" He hesitated, as if needing to struggle and think. In the waiting interval, my heart rate exploded for no reason, almost unable to breathe. I could sense that something solemn was walking towards me, worthy of me holding my breath. Finally, he said, "My truth or dare." Every minute I hoped to see her face, waiting silently without complaint. Every minute longing to meet her, running into her on the street brings joy for days. A light feeling floats up, a lovely first love. Every minute I hope to see her face, waiting silently without complaint. Every minute longing to meet her, running into her on the street brings joy for days. A light feeling floats up. So, what is truth, and what exactly is love? Love is so painful. On the 20th day of the breakup, my condition verified Mandy's past sigh. When I stepped on the scale in the morning, I found my weight had dropped sharply by 12 pounds, and both cheeks began to sink. Because I couldn't control shedding tears every late night, my eyelids never stopped being swollen. I looked listless, and indeed was listless. Energy levels bottomed out, the meaning of living no longer vivid. When I just moved into this narrow matchbox-like rental, I would regularly buy different kinds of fresh-cut bouquets from roadside stalls to decorate it, then take photos to send to Ethan. But now, I didn't want to do anything. Occasionally passing by malls we used to visit, restaurants where we dated, it would feel like a club striking head-on, a muffled thunder followed by long, gloomy rain. The insomnia index worsened day by day. When I couldn't sleep, I repeatedly searched for various reconciliation guides, reading countless posts about men always come back to cheer myself up, then looking for positive feedback cases under different no-contact rule theories. Oh right, there was also manifestation, which I pondered for 2 days to barely understand. The comment sections of these contents were often mixed with metaphysics ads like love spells and reconciliation rituals, sticking like plasters. One day, I added the WeChat of a witch who claimed to be able to perform reconciliation rituals like possessed. The girl on the other side introduced the project rules formally, finally saying, "1 candle is 120. I checked the balance in my WeChat wallet, feeling everything was extremely ridiculous, ridiculous enough to make myself cry. I replied to her nonchalantly, "Forget it, that's more expensive than my life." After a while, I asked, "Does it guarantee reconciliation?" I realized I couldn't go on like this. The next afternoon, I took leave to go to the Provincial People's Hospital, unexpectedly finding the psychology department fully booked. I asked if they could squeeze me in. The front desk nurse said, "Dr. Huang is fully booked for today, you have to book days in advance." "Did you book?" I answered no. The nurse said, "If not, you can't be seen today." I hadn't considered this at all. Even taking leave was a desperate, overloaded, sudden move. I bit my lower lip, squeezing out a "okay, it's fine." I settled for the second best and went to the general outpatient clinic in the lobby on the first floor. When I sat down, the elderly doctor asked me, "What's wrong with you?" My tears rushed out, scaring him. Hey, why crying?" I choked out, "I just can't sleep." "Insomnia." He pulled a tissue for me, comforting. "Insomnia isn't a big problem. Many young girls like you have high work pressure now and come here to get medicine for insomnia. I'll prescribe a box for you, go back and take it for a week first. Half a pill every day, take it half an hour before sleep. If half a pill doesn't work, take one." Finally, he said, "Adjust a bit and it will get better." I said, "Okay." "It's fine, it will get better. Minnie Dean, you will get better." But it was so hard. Hard enough that I suspected many times, did my life have such a darkest moment? Was my resilience really this poor? Before knowing Ethan, didn't I live quite well alone? Can't live without a man. What about Ethan? Why could he hang high above, so relaxed and indifferent? This fragile self, always easily falling into sadness, really shamed me. Hate bred from the soil of pain. I felt I was harmed miserably by Ethan. Thanks to him, I had to endure these disturbing, inseparable negative emotions. I shouldn't have met Ethan, shouldn't have liked him. What gave him the right to stop loving just like that, abandoning me alone in the snow? I hated him. But if he came back, I would definitely laugh at him, then hold him and cry bitterly. After the laughable candle ritual, I waited foolishly for a week. clicking into Ethan's WeChat 100 million times a day, confirming if he updated his status, if he changed his avatar and wallpaper, reporting to that girl. The girl said, "Don't be so anxious. He hasn't changed the couple avatar and wallpaper yet, indicating he still has you in his heart, just needs time to digest the negative emotions towards you. Wait a bit longer." The middle sentence made my nose sour. I replied, feigning relief, "Okay." Another week passed, Ethan was silent. I wasn't surprised at all, nor did I have any indignation about wasting money. From the start, I knew clearly, this wasn't a ritual, it was a scam, and I just needed a little hope. Relying on this scattered expectation and the S-Cipiclone tablets by the bedside, I calmed down briefly. The precious calm ended on the day the breakup marked 1 full month. I stalked all of Ethan's social apps as usual moments. TikTok following and follower counts, music playlists, Pinterest collections, even his eBay page I wouldn't let go. This habit had become as silky smooth as me ordering an iced Americano every day after arriving at the company. The first stop was WeChat, but today the route stopped abruptly here. I found he had changed his avatar and background, like being nailed to the swivel chair by something I couldn't move. I panic refreshed the page many times. Our photo together became a purely white background. His avatar also changed to a cool beagle wearing sunglasses. Suppressing my heartbeat, I saved his new avatar and imported it into the image search bar. After confirming it wasn't a couple avatar, I slowly let out a breath. The sensation capable of controlling limbs returned to the body. Anxiety didn't alleviate. I picked out a scapegoat in the uneasy speculation that I screenshotted and sent it to her, questioning. Why did he change his avatar and wallpaper? Does your candle really work? Did I really want to question her? If the phone transformed into a mirror at this moment, I would definitely glimpse my own abominable appearance. The girl seemed accustomed to it, because he's reacting, he wants to attract your attention. Stay steady, I guess he'll come to find you in 2 days. Really? I tapped open Ethan's chat interface, staring straight at it. For a moment, I incomparably hoped to see typing appear on it. Typing? Before midnight on our 1-year anniversary, I once saw a guy writing and stopping like this for an hour on the same interface. At the same time, there was another guy, quietly observing in the dark for an hour. 2 super bored people loving each other in a very stupid and time-wasting way. 0000. The anniversary essay was published on time to our dual channel. Dear Minnie Dean, my darling, my babe, love of my life. I smiled and teased amidst a long paragraph of redundant and cheesy prefixes. Almost thought you couldn't make the timing. Ethan was suddenly annoyed. Damn, there's a typo. Where? I started browsing rapidly, launching a spot the difference game in the dense words dominating 2 pages. Then, I found I couldn't find any mistake at all. My brain was dizzy like filled with sweet wine, difficult to focus attention. Ethan replied haughtily, "Not telling you," and quoted my rant, "How is that possible? I wrote the draft on paper beforehand. I was curious. Why not show me what you wrote down?" Ethan said, "Handwriting isn't good enough. Afraid you'll laugh at me." He began to claim credit, sending a stack of copybooks. I practiced handwriting in advance too, still couldn't write well. Last-minute cramming is useless. I asked, "Can you take a photo of the original version for me to see?" Ethan strictly refused. "No," I replied. "Yes, Ethan. No, I used the magic of more exclamation marks to defeat magic." Yes, 2 super bored people, super childish conversation, would always go on for a long time, tirelessly. Finally, I said, "Beg you." Only then did Ethan send his original letter. His handwriting was indeed not good, inferior to mine anyway, but stroke by stroke, attentive and serious. Unsatisfactory parts were even marked and corrected with a red pen. I read it many times with blooming joy, to the point of tears filling my eyes. At the end of the letter, he swore a solemn oath. The 2nd year after, the 3rd year, the nth year, I will love Minnie Dean deeply. If I can't do it, let me fail my exams hard, let me make no money, let me never have a good time in my life. The nth year with such a vague concept, which year was it exactly? What was future? All mysterious like always and forever. I was very touched then, replying with some heartache, "Don't swear like this, okay? I don't want you to have a hard time, even if you leave me." Ethan said, "PFFFT, withdraw, I won't leave, and we won't separate." Worried about the prophecy coming true, I withdrew my words. But what about your oath? Did you withdraw it too? And when was that? Unlike Ethan, I wasn't someone who liked to make promises or made them easily. Promising meant labeling oneself. Once the contract was made, words followed like law. But in my youth, coerced by my father, I made quite a few promises and had to write them on paper, cut them into long strips, and paste them in front of the desk. To put it nicely, it was for encouragement. Bluntly, it was involuntary admonition, father said. Write it down so you won't forget. Next final exam, I will definitely rank in the top 5 of the class, memorize 100 words every day, review the old to learn the new. Various things. Maybe I was quite willing to do these things, but if asked to write them down, they became annoying like hangnails. But it was merely a thought of disobedience. I knew very well that if I didn't do so, I couldn't avoid being scolded. Ethan said, "Babe, I love you. Will you always love me too?" I wanted to reply, yes. But another voice would sound in my heart. You have to do what you say. Can you guarantee the other party will do it too? But I would still tell Ethan, yes, and tried to avoid definitive words like of course, definitely. Compared to sincere words, this was closer to a consoling performance, simply because I thought it should be this way. I had no confidence in the other party, and even less confidence in myself. Gaining, possessing, in my eyes meant equal exchange or returning more, and deprivation that hadn't happened yet. In 3rd grade, my father went on a business trip to the provincial capital and brought me back a genuine Barbie doll. I still remembered the doll's appearance. Pale blonde curly hair, slender figure, packed in a blue and white grid box, wearing a blue and white grid skirt too. She was completely different from the pirated Barbies I had played with before or seen on stalls. I named her after myself, Minnie. She didn't have a gorgeous, sequined, fluffy princess dress, but when I took her to play house with friends, she was still the most dazzling and outstanding Cinderella among all dolls. Unfortunately, I underperformed in math that final exam and didn't get full marks. My dad furiously grabbed the doll from my pillow side. I chased beside him, begging him to return it to me, crying and sobbing, "I will work hard. I will definitely get full marks every time next semester." Dad remained unmoved, opened the drawer of his own bedroom, locked the doll inside with a thud and a click. "Wait until you achieve it, then talk." Minnie became a hostage in his hands, and I was the neighboring country paying tribute regularly. The tributes were scores, and the restraint of never resisting to ensure my princess was foolproof. The 2nd year, I fulfilled the promise. After the midterm exam, I asked Dad for Minnie once. He said midterm exam results didn't represent anything, talk after achieving it in the finals. However, after the final exam, he didn't return Minnie as agreed, and told me casually that the doll was given to a boss's daughter. He would buy another one to compensate me in the summer vacation. I was dumbfounded, mumbling. When? He couldn't remember the specific date. "A while ago, while you were at school. He brought his girl over to play. There were no toys at home, so I took it out for her." I stared at him in disbelief. That was my doll. He gave me an inexplicable look. "Didn't I say I'd buy you another one? What's with that look?" Sitting on the subway to the university, I sat blankly, letting childhood memories surface defenselessly. In the stage where Ethan and I loved each other most, I could still feel a sliver of a gap in our sweet fusion. And behind the gap, wind always blew towards me, like a warning. The first bouquet of flowers in my life was given to me by Ethan, a dozen white roses representing wholehearted love. I held them carefully in my arms, ashamed to admit, this is the first time I've received flowers. I only praised. "The flowers are very beautiful," Ethan said. "You are prettier though." I had just come out of the study room then, looking disheveled from grinding books, hadn't washed my hair since last night either. "No way, flowers look much better than me," Ethan said. "Don't care, our Princess Minnie is the prettiest in the world." I buried my head to sniff the roses in front of me. In the night, they were like elves wrapped in soft light, crowding around me, turning me into a real princess. Before saying goodbye downstairs at the dorm, I looked at Ethan. "Is there anything you want?" He tilted his head looking at me, thick eyebrows frowning tight. "Why say this?" I said. "I don't want you to spend money for nothing." Ethan went, "Huh? What nonsense are you talking about? Giving you things isn't so you can pay me back." I was moved almost to tears, telling myself, he's so good, this person treats me so well. At the same time, the sound of wind appeared again. Minnie Dean, are you really at peace with this? Later, I took out a small sum from my love fund to carefully select a razor mouse costing over $200 for Ethan. Upon receiving it, his surprise made him unable to close his mouth, 10 times happier than when I received the flowers myself. The thing hanging in my heart suddenly fell to the ground. I breathed a sigh of relief. From then on, similar exchange rituals were gradually established and formed in our romantic relationship, and I found balance based on this. Since possessing a clearly priced balance, why was I still prone to dissatisfaction? I increasingly loved to redefine and interpret his words and actions, listening to his defense, watching him apologize, then walking towards me disregarding past grievances. The plot replayed repeatedly, and only then would the imbalance dissipate. Like staying under a fruit tree without roots and branches, letting apples smash onto me one by one with force, only then would I have the satiety of pain. Was what I wanted balance or something else? After the carriage stopped, a word settled in my heart: safety. That lost doll I cared for meticulously, regarding it as a treasure, pouring the most love into her, but she wasn't safe. Her safest moment was when locked in the drawer. So I had to return to the drawer again and again. When she was locked inside, unseen, untouched by human hands, only then would she obtain supreme safety amidst loneliness and enclosure. I couldn't pin all hope on the illusory and expensive candles anymore. I couldn't sit and wait for death like in the past. I wanted to see Ethan. I wanted to find Princess Minnie back. If I could see him face to face, our relationship might have a turning point. After all, this method had worked on him many times. No matter how harsh the text, how cold the attitude, when he appeared before my eyes, everything would soften, dissolving into spring mist. Walking to his dormitory building, the surrounding trees and people made me dazed, feeling like a lifetime away. Clearly, I only came here at the end of last month. I checked my makeup, solemn enough for an engagement, via the front camera, then exited to WeChat him. "Are you in the dorm?" Ethan didn't reply. Waiting a while, I said, "I'm downstairs at your dorm. Are you willing to meet for a moment?" Only then did Ethan have movement, a simple. My lower back hurt, like a rejection reaction. The original spine was pulled out, replaced by a substitute unable to support. I sat on the stairs at the entrance, annoyed and wanting to cry but lacking tears. I asked a second time, "Can you meet me once? I'm waiting for you downstairs." I knew it, Ethan wouldn't be that heartless. Ethan came downstairs. It was still him. But he looked a bit strange. Was it because he wore black-framed glasses? But these weren't the main point. The point was when he walked out of the shadows to stand in front of me, I felt salvation. Unbearable weakness flooded my eye sockets, clogging my throat, like a chronically ill person finally waiting for the doctor. They drove me to stand up, welcoming him, trying to greet him. Before words left my mouth, Ethan's emotionless gaze came to my face. His lips moved, speaking words I couldn't have imagined in this lifetime. "If you cry, don't talk to me. Feelings and emotions are strange products." As soon as Ethan spoke, my tear ducts were like a door slammed shut with a bang, closing instantly. The plot was completely different from what I envisioned. I thought, when I started crying, Ethan would hug me with heartache as usual. Taking a step back, even for the sake of face, when I showed distress, he should at least offer a few words of comfort. But now, my tears were like volatile toxic germs in the air, not a single drop allowed. The position of my masseter muscles was tightening to suppress the torrential sadness. I also shifted my attention elsewhere. I observed Ethan's frames, asking as if nothing happened, "Are your eyes uncomfortable?" Luck was growing. Maybe when I secretly shed tears because of the separation, Ethan did the same. To hide it, he wore glasses. Ethan replied, "Left eye has a sty." Really? Being a bit far from him, I couldn't help stepping forward half a step, wanting to see more clearly. But Ethan took a step back, fixing me in place too. I didn't move again. "Does it hurt?" Ethan said. "It's fine, we'll be better in 2 days." Clearly a QA, but it sounded strictly business. I suddenly ran out of words. Awkwardness permeated. Once upon a time, we were people who talked about everything, now we were nothing. On the day, we established a relationship with Ethan, which was also the second night he snuck out of the dorm just to sing First Love a cappella for me, we returned from a walk on the playground. Ethan walked me to the dorm downstairs. Before parting, he wouldn't let go of my hand no matter what. I pretended to struggle many times. He gripped tighter, begging, "Wait a bit, stay a bit longer." His sweaty palms stained my heart with awkward sweetness. Okay. It's not like we won't see each other tomorrow," Ethan said, "but tonight is very long." I was like coaxing a child. "We can text after going back." Ethan sighed deeply. Passing girls were stealing glances at us. I became one of the clingy couples I used to disdain and despise in the past, finally having to feign anger. "Let go," Ethan finally let go, but his bright eyes still held onto me. "Fine. Message me to say you're safe when you get to the dorm." I couldn't help laughing. "Is that necessary? I live on the second floor." "Necessary, very necessary to me." "Fine, got it," I agreed helplessly. Before sleeping, I rigidly believed we needed a ceremony, needed formal roles and positioning, representing entering each other's lives from then on. I threw a straight ball in WeChat. "What are we now?" "Don't know if Ethan did it intentionally or not," he replied annoyingly. "Don't know." I got angry, speaking in reverse. "Oh, I know, we are nothing." I knew this guy was suppressing first to raise later. He immediately refuted me. "Clearly, we are everything." I happily sought proof. "Everything? What is everything?" Ethan talked big. "Friends, lovers, family. I want to have all these identities." It was also this sentence, traversing the next 5 years like faith, for him and for me. My cheeks began to burn. I realized we had been standing in the sun for too long. I asked Ethan, "Are you busy right now? Want to find a place off campus to sit and chat?" Ethan replied with a faint voice, "Just say it here." In fact, the me at this very moment didn't know what to say, what to do. The sky was vast and my heart was lost. I came harboring a steadfast belief in retrieval, but now, the distance after meeting was real to the bone. I could no longer deceive myself. For a moment, desperate thoughts drowned over my head. I guessed if I rashly proposed getting back together, Ethan might turn around and go upstairs immediately. I found a delaying tactic. "Can I ask you a question?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "Speak," I swallowed, stating carefully, not understanding why I became so careful. "We've been apart for a month too. This month. Were you happier or sadder?" Ethan looked at the tree canopy in the distance, narrowed his eyes, and looked back at me. Happy, collapse, a strong quake struck again. Standing to communicate was indeed a hasty decision. I struggled to maintain my breathing rhythm. "Meaning, after detaching from this relationship, you feel you are happy, right?" Ethan gave without hesitation. "Okay," I wasn't sure how I made a sound. "That's good," Ethan added. Compared to happy, relieved might be more accurate. Chin muscles driving the lower lip to tremble, I responded, "Okay" again. Ethan blurred, starting to rummage in his pants pockets, left, right, finally taking out a whole bulging pack of tissues, handing it over. "Minnie Dean," he paused, "don't come looking for me again." The tissues weren't opened. Held in my hand, it was like holding residual physical warmth, remnant kindness. Ethan foresaw my crying, just as I identified his determination. Before coming, I thought of many things to say to him. For example, "You are a very good person." "You aren't terrible, the terrible person is me." "I can change, please believe me." "Since graduation I've been busy with work, I neglected you, neglected our feelings." "I'm really willing to change, sincerely change, give me another chance." I won't say discouraging words anymore, won't threaten breakup at every turn, testing our relationship in this terrible way. "Sorry, I really know I was wrong." "Ethan, sorry." Tears ravaged my face. I couldn't find the opening of the tissue pack, failing several times. Guilt and sorrow descended like torrential rain, suffocating. My heart repeated incessantly, "God, Minnie Dean, did you see? See his attitude towards you. This is your punishment. You deserve it. You are a person who doesn't know how to love and doesn't deserve to be loved. This is your retribution. Your selfishness and willfulness made you lose the person who loved you most in the world." Approaching the school gate, the turbulent emotions eased somewhat. I wiped away the wetness on my face with both hands, standing quietly, waiting for them to dry completely. Meanwhile, I noticed a pharmacy across the street and walked over quickly. The pharmacist in a white coat asked what I needed from behind the counter. I cleared my throat. "Do you have eye drops or something for treating styes?" She began to examine my eyes while I quickly avoided her gaze. "Not for me." She looked no further, finding a small pink box and a tube of white ointment from the shelf, telling me in detail how to use them. When paying, I bought an extra paper bag to store the medicine properly. Just about to leave, I turned back to the cashier asking, "Do you have a pen?" Reason told me I was doing unnecessary and self-moving acts, but if not like this, my heart would never find peace. Carrying the bag, I turned back into the campus. I planned to hand them to the dorm manager, then send Ethan a message. Heavy when coming, I felt much lighter now. I told myself I was still trying, I wouldn't disturb him, I just still wanted room for maneuver. Loss happened and I realized it belatedly. Just like the little prince intending to leave, the flower revealed her heart to him. "I was very stupid before. Sorry, wish you happiness." "Yes, I love you. You knew nothing about it, that is my fault." I had 4 naive thorns, but without the rose's pride. The planet began to lay waste. I was so vulnerable, wanting to return to the warm glass cover. Crazier and more absurd thoughts ran out. Maybe I could resign, give up my current job, cancel the current apartment, rent a place off campus again, concentrate on loving Ethan, accompany him, take care of his life and feelings, like he did to me in the past. If our relationship could be repaired, I was willing to go all out. If he could return to my side, I was willing to be a fool for love and a slave for a lifetime. Approaching downstairs at Ethan's dorm, I saw a person from afar I could always recognize Ethan at a glance. I froze. Intuition told me he wasn't waiting for me or looking for me. Soon, a girl holding a light blue umbrella walked into the same frame. Ethan waved at her, and she walked up the steps quickly. They chatted and laughed face to face, without any intimate moves. Ethan was very relaxed. Both people were very relaxed, distinct from us just now. Amidst the heavier heartbeat, I heard some rustling of plastic bags. They shattered in my hands like glass. The garbage bin near the dorm building had just been emptied. When I threw the medicine in, I heard a thud of bottoming out. I was unexpectedly calm, didn't go up to throw a tantrum, nor did I take photos for evidence to send to Ethan to reclaim the home ground. The long-lost dignity returned instantly, rebounding to the high ground. I walked rapidly towards outside the campus without looking back. Emotions were indistinguishable: destruction, betrayal, I wasn't sure. Mostly, I was so ludicrous. Gotta admit, 10 minutes ago, I was actually thinking I wanted to quit my job and switch careers to be a deeply devoted knight, a self-sacrificing nanny. In the gap of mocking myself, I recalled the scene just now, that girl's appearance. Intuition continued to push me. On the return subway, I clicked into Ethan's WeChat, rummaging through chat history. Separated by a long time, Ethan loved to express, and I was a nostalgic person, leading to our chat history being as large as dozens of GBs. Struggling to look back for a long time, I gave up this inefficient query, directly typing a keyword in the chat history search bar. Birthday. Index finger swiping simply on the screen a few times, I locked onto the message from July 3rd last year. That birthday I forgot. I opened the short video sent by Ethan, saved it, watching repeatedly frame by frame. Fingers trembling with a weird excitement like solving a case. At a certain second, I froze on that girl. She was sitting diagonally across from Ethan. If I guessed correctly, she was one of the seniors in his lab. A group gathering didn't count as valid evidence to prove he had a change of heart and shifted affection earlier. Moreover, seeing them with my own eyes today, the physical contact wasn't out of line either. I breathed a sigh of relief, then felt a bit disappointed. I was seized by a flash of disappointment. My mind was clear for the first time since the breakup a month ago. Analyzing objectively, the lover difficult to part with couldn't be called betraying for now, but why did I have a chain reaction of disappointment? Did I hope he cheated, seamlessly connecting to a new relationship? Seemed not. More so, insufficient evidence caused me to fall from the moral high ground back to the bottom, having to face myself again. Some confusions that hadn't appeared since the breakup unraveled. Witnessing Ethan getting along with other girls, I became calm. Where did the calm come from? Was it numbing from abuse, or was the other party changed heart enough to become my disclaimer? If so, was it Ethan I wanted to retrieve, or did I want to prove myself through successful retrieval, fighting for a win? Behind those seemingly humble conceptions and words, was it actually my unscrupulous performance? Was what truly hit me that Ethan didn't love me anymore? Or was it that I myself wasn't good, not worth being loved? Thinking wild thoughts, uncertain and suspicious. That night, I couldn't help disturbing my past roommates, sending a stupid text to the dorm group chat that was about to gather cobwebs. Do you guys think I'm good? Running separate ways after graduation, our dorm group basically existed in name only. Occasionally, someone resurrected. Everyone would exchange a few perfunctory greetings about current situations. This was the first time I initiated actively. Zoe Lane's reply speed was the most grateful. Her edges didn't seem to be smoothed out in the government job. Still loving to curse. Psycho, asking such boring questions instead of sleeping in the middle of the night. I smiled slightly. Mandy Summers was the second to appear, keenly sniffing something. What? Quarreled with Ethan? Corners of the mouth began to drop. I replied to Zoe and Mandy sequentially, just asking, answer me. We've been broken up for a month already. I mentioned it as easily as possible, even using punctuation very dashingly. This time, both of them were surprised in unison. Huh? I said, huh what? And said, otherwise why ask this? I typed on the keyboard, my nose turning sour along with it. Am I really a terrible person, so that's why I got dumped? Mandy said, how is that possible? Zoe said, do you have any misconception about yourself? At the same time, Cynthia Zimmerman also bubbled up in the group. Can I speak objectively? I responded, okay. Cynthia said, you aren't terrible. On the contrary, we all feel you were a bit too good to Ethan. Your badness is treating him too well. I was tongue-tied. She Mandy and Zoe respectively, telling them not to turtle up, and confessed something I only knew today. In the first semester of junior year, they had pulled a 3-person small group behind my back. Purpose was none other than exclusively roasting my changes after falling in love, and my words and deeds difficult for them to understand. The group name in the screenshot, Mean with Resentment, was called Boyfriend Over Roommates. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What were you guys doing? Cynthia said. Nothing, the group name is the answer. In urgent need of external affirmation, I unfortunately received a struggle session from my roommates. The 3 of them weren't even satisfied with text communication, urgently dialing the group voice call. My breakup was probably an interpersonal liberation for them too. Those emotions hidden in the past, like a flock of birds shut in for a long time, fluttered and rushed towards me. For the Marxism finals, you organized exam materials for him, even copying 4 sets, giving to his roommates too. We didn't have this treatment. Did you know it was very unbalanced back then? I even made sarcastic remarks. You actually smiled cheekily saying we are all smart but Ethan is a dummy. Help. Whenever birthdays came, you only knew to ask dryly what gifts we wanted. Ethan's birthday, you wished you could prepare 20 surprises for him from age 1 to 20, and all wrapped perfectly. Every time the dorm team building asked you out, you said you had something with Ethan. Rare for everyone to be present and go out once, you stopped to reply messages every 2 steps, went aside to make phone calls as soon as we sat down at the restaurant. Did you really have so much to say? Weren't you video calling and voice calling every night? I really don't understand. Right, once the 4 of us went for a foot massage, remember? Ethan called you halfway, knew you were getting a foot massage, got super angry. You explained he was still unhappy, you could only leave halfway. We 4 originally agreed to eat barbecue and karaoke at night. Please, big brother, we were getting a massage, not visiting a host club. Was that necessary? Not sleeping in the middle of the night, hiding in the toilet arguing. I couldn't even go to the toilet, held my pee hard for a long time, really couldn't hold it anymore, only then knocked on the door to call you out. At the start of arguments, we even scolded him for you. Result was you guys made up the next day, and the words we scolded were known by Ethan. I really wished I could press both of you into the sewer back then. Later, with more such things, we didn't chime in anymore. Meaningless and got no thanks. Anyway, ever since you dated, only Ethan was your insider. We were all outsiders. Roommates spoke one after another, completely unable to stop. In their dense roasting, I didn't feel a trace of offense. On the contrary, their frankness moved and reassured me. During the process, I tried to defend myself a few sentences, but was immediately drowned out by their louder voices. So I listened quietly. Those love details, almost forgotten and ignored, narrated by them, appeared vividly on another screen again. But they were still from the same movie. I considered myself terrible to Ethan, but in their eyes, I was too good to Ethan. The lover and relationship I considered flawless, in their view, only invited eye rolls. Of course, it wasn't that I never perceived something wrong. Probably starting from some period in the second semester of junior year, the name Ethan seemed to become a forbidden word in our dorm. Once I mentioned it, everyone would fall into tacit silence. What did I think back then? Because roommates didn't date, so I had no common topic with them. Afterward, I delivered all desire to confide and share to Ethan, and knowingly avoided discussing anything related to feelings with roommates. Our communication became less and less, until senior year when I completely moved out of the dorm. Terrifying realization invaded at this moment. It wasn't that there were no common topics. Instead, when I stopped mentioning feelings, I had nothing to say. The online tea party with my roommates lasted until nearly 2 o'clock. In the second half, everyone stopped talking about feelings, turning to office weirdos, entertainment gossip, and new opposite sex encountered in life. Cynthia recommended a social app to us, saying it was real name-based, requiring filling in universities for registration, having certain guarantees. She contacted some decent guys in there. Besides, Ethan was already meeting new people. Why should I remain a chaste widow for him? I smiled. That's not appropriate. Putting it online will be called seamless connection. Cynthia said, "Who recognizes you? And don't disbelieve, the fastest way to walk out of heartbreak is contacting new people." She had always been direct, urging others again, "Download it. All of you, what's wrong with casting a wide net? Being some contemporary chaste woman. Screenshot to the group later, I'll check one by one, whoever didn't download is a traitor." Mandy laughed. "Are you working for this app now?" Cynthia, "Damn, pretty much. My current company has a partnership with them." Mandy, "Are you human, calculating onto revolutionary comrades?" Cynthia talked back. "No need to pay anyway, getting a free channel to deliver men, what's wrong with that?" Zoe agreed. "Makes sense." After hanging up the connection, I started tidying up the account. The seriousness of carefully selecting profile photos and writing the bio was no less than making a resume. The blank homepage turned into a brand new and beautiful garden under the decoration of text and photos. While doing these, I was unusually focused, almost excluding Ethan from my thoughts. But the next second, he squeezed back into my brain stubbornly. Because of déjà vu, strong déjà vu, my concrete cognition of love should have started from a cliché sentence, roughly. When I walk on the road seeing a cloud and subconsciously take a photo to show you, I realize things are bad. When just adding Ethan on WeChat, I didn't make such presumptuous and direct gestures, but I became more enthusiastic about posting on my social feed than before. Many ordinary things became vivid and interesting. Sunsets, leaves, ice cream cones, books, snacks with nice packaging in the supermarket cart, all would be recorded and displayed on my feed. The purpose was to show myself. It looked like a public gallery, but the visitor truly handed a ticket, and allowed in was only this one person, Ethan. When he left a comment below, today's business was considered successful. I also turned from a toxic woman who only knew to bury her head in books into fragments of poetry. The sun is intense, the water waves are gentle. Tonight I curated again, but had lost the exclusive client. Immersively arranging everything, the roommate's joyous scolding was no longer in my ears. The desolate night covered over like a shadow again. I hurriedly swallowed a sleeping pill, wanting to use sleep to extend the current self. Then came 2 days busy until my feet didn't touch the ground. I had almost no time to miss Ethan, examine my failed love, and shed tears for them. However, the emptiness in my heart wouldn't be filled because of this. The habit of patrolling Ethan's social software couldn't be quit in a short while. There was still no new movement on his side. Silent to the point, I nearly suspected that going to see him that day was a dream bubble. Dragging my tired shell home on Wednesday, I remembered the software Cynthia strongly recommended. I never liked turning on push notifications for apps. After tapping into the icon, I was stunned. More than 50 people greeted me. The back-end private messages were dense, like facing the carp crowded in a scenic spot pool, making one nauseous for no reason. I couldn't be bothered to browse one by one. Picking a nice-sounding name, I clicked in. Checking his homepage, it was a guy named Jax Jagger, 21 years old, verified university was the University of Edinburgh. He only said a hi to me, no cliched pickup lines, no redundant confession. I stared at the chat box for a while, replying a hi to him. I waited until past 12, no follow-up, so I closed my eyes to sleep. Seeing Jax's reply was at noon the next day. I brought a convenience store rice ball back to my cubicle. The message at 3 p.m. was eye-opening. Because of jet lag, or was university boys' schedule always this erratic? After all, Ethan often pulled all-nighters gaming in senior year too. I opened Jax's homepage again, confirming his IP. It was domestic in Los Angeles, he said. Sorry, had a gig at night, didn't check your message in time. I bit the rice ball, sending curiosity spanning 9 hours. What do you do? This time Jax replied quickly. He said he was a sound engineer, touring the country with a niche band. His profession was fresh. I said, first time seeing someone doing this. Jax said, just part-time. I replied, main job is a trust fund baby? Jax laughed. Haha, yes. He added, school starts in September. The band he's following is about to disband too, so he wanted to give himself a summer with no room left. My gaze stopped on a summer with no room left. Some people gave themselves a summer with no room left. Some gave themselves a summer in utter wretchedness. I was the latter. I chewed the rice, taste buds waking up in the salty teriyaki chicken, touring to Los Angeles now. The other party was surprised. How did you know? Me, your homepage IP. He was very like the Ethan I first met, carrying a few parts of clumsy puppy vibe. Oh, I forgot. I curled my lips slightly. Where is the next stop? Jax sent the band's tour poster to me. Objectively speaking, the band name wasn't auspicious, called Vanity, Empty Thoughts, but the tour theme was nice. Visuals had style too. Like dew, like lightning, from Buddhist scripture. Red background gold characters in seal script title filled with Zen. I noticed their schedule and location. After Los Angeles was New York, the city I was in. I said, turns out it's here. Jax said, yeah, are you a New Yorker? I said, no, just working here. You, where are you from? Jax replied, Beijing. I said, so you're a city boy. Jax immediately replied like having an allergy, don't. I came to New York from a fringe small town in the Midwest, while Ethan was a native born and raised. When first meeting him, I had felt subtle inferiority due to regional disparity. But this gap dissipated quickly because Ethan never showed superiority, and I knew I would eventually stay in the city. Even if from different sources, we wouldn't have geographical separation. During the period of cohabitation, we often stuck together scrolling through breeder pages on Instagram, picking border collie puppies with pure bloodlines and sweet looks, vowing solemnly that we would definitely raise a dog together after marriage. Name was thought of too, called Little Ethan, taking mom's last name, dad's first name. I flipped through Jax's homepage. In the grotesque live performance photos he accumulated, I saw a clear stream the puppy in my fantasy, a lilac border collie, sticking out a big tongue, eyes alert, fur very beautiful too. I asked, is this your dog? Jax said, yeah, but I went abroad so my parents are raising her. I asked, what's his name? Jax corrected my misjudgment of the dog's gender, her. I corrected myself. What's your daughter's name? Jax. Haha, she's called Little Jax. Then I told a lie. God, I want to raise a border collie too, name her Mini Min. I was lying, but not completely lying. I wanted to excise Ethan. The blueprint he tore up personally would be presented with a new script, becoming my seal in front of other opposite sex. Ethan, are you doing these too? In front of some girl, would you also have a dream puppy named Little Ethan? Pressing the send key, the pleasure of revenge rose like sparks, also carrying a rapid fall after self-subversion. Contradiction impacted me. I wanted to laugh and also wanted to cry. Did I betray Ethan, or did I go against my original intention? In past cognition, I had no concept of heartbreak, but it didn't mean I hadn't fantasized about it happening. I was thinking, if that day really came, I would go to the gym, read, hike, travel around the country, didn't have enough money to travel the world yet. Learn another foreign language, maybe French, maybe Italian. Anyway, it wouldn't be making new love connections. However, exactly the opposite, I was trapped in a square cubicle, chatting with a boy met on a dating app in every gap, treating him as my pastime amidst busyness. I admitted, chatting with Jax, I could feel light and vitality slowly flowing back into my body, but similarly, there were also some moments I would dim uncontrollably. I loathed Ethan increasingly. He was no longer just an ex-boyfriend. He became a frame, a ruler. I would unconsciously use him to measure everyone I met. Jax had no problem. We voice-called on the third day of knowing each other. Jax's voice was like a spring with visible bottom, full of clean and transparent boyishness, plus a Beijing accent rimming it. I couldn't stop laughing. I leaned on the headboard asking him, "Is Edinburgh fun?" Jax said. "Don't come, you'll get depressed," I said. "But you sound very happy," Jax said. "That's because I've already gone crazy." I laughed out loud, recalling the performance time on the poster. "Are you guys coming to New York?" Jax said. "Yeah, flying tomorrow." My smile converged instantly. Very annoying, it was moments like this, the Ethan curse appearing suddenly. It could strangle all my happiness in an instant. My first time on a plane in my life was with Ethan. Having watched mountains since childhood, I had longed for the sea for a long time. We hit it off instantly, putting Miami on the travel plan. Taking the train from New York would take over 20 hours, but flying only took 3 hours. Ethan didn't want to waste too much time on the road, suggesting buying plane tickets, adding, "So long, it'll flatten our mini's butt." I sent him a bear knocking on your head sticker on WeChat. "I've been doing glute bridges every day recently, okay?" Ethan didn't reply immediately. 5 minutes later, he sent a screenshot. He had already booked tickets for us. Minnie Dean and Ethan Sullivan's seats were next to each other. I confessed, I haven't been on a plane yet. Ethan seemed to have foreseen it, so I gave the window seat to you. Boarding time was past 6. I was nervous during ascent, ears blocked. I grabbed Ethan's hand deadly like a flustered child, screaming inside like a boiling kettle until the plane stabilized. Looking out the window again, it was a wonder never seen before. The sunset concentrated in the porthole, forming a boundary of light and dark with the surface, like a beautiful capsule. I gazed unblinkingly. "Is it that good looking?" Ethan leaned behind my head. I came back to my senses, turning back to look at him too. Our faces were very close, 4 eyes meeting. He affirmed, "Yeah, good looking." I knew clearly he was talking about me. Afterwards, he quickly pasted a kiss on the corner of my mouth, then turned his head away to snicker. Seeing his slightly bulging side face, the sunset capsule seemed to dissolve in my heart. Sweet orange color, nectar taste. Every flight from then on, even just mentioning it in words, would become a heart anchor related to Ethan. Just like smelling osmanthus in autumn, it was already in effect. "Does it rain a lot in the UK?" The gray aftermath appeared. I uncontrollably turned the topic to a strange and jumpy place. Jax froze for a moment. "Yeah, I'm going to take a shower." I swallowed, curbing the urge to weep. Emotions were losing control. I was afraid the other party would detect it. Jax was even more puzzled. "Didn't you wash already?" I fell silent. My lying skills had become so sophisticated. I wanted to voice chat a bit earlier, so I told you I'd already showered. Actually, I just got home from work not long ago and I'm still rotting in bed." Jax Jagger laughed. "I can wait for you." "No need, my conscience isn't that clear." Guilt tripped me into the bathroom, where I inexplicably took another shower. The shower head was the perfect prop, allowing me to cry recklessly beneath it. The warm water wrapped around my tears, flowing past my lips, diluting them so they weren't quite as bitter and salty. In the end, it hurt so much I squatted down, curled up there as if I'd taken a heavy blow to the stomach. I had said almost the exact same thing to Ethan Sullivan. It was during my first 6 months at the company. I often worked late, and because we didn't see each other as often as before, I became increasingly dependent on him, missing him just as he missed me. So, I would delay showering just to extend our time together. Sometimes, worried he might feel burdened, I would lie and tell him I had already washed up. I really wanted to tell him. I wanted to clarify for myself that I wasn't always just drying my hair. Why haven't I healed yet? It's been over a month, why haven't I healed yet? Has medical science not developed a targeted procedure for memory erasure? I wished I could become a machine, my brain a hard drive. If I could just drag the file named Ethan Sullivan into the recycle bin and permanently delete it, rooting him out of my life, my suffering would end. After putting my pajamas back on, the face of the woman in the mirror had calmed down. I stared blankly at my bare, pale self. The slightly dark circles under my eyes actually formed a natural contour, and even the tear troughs looked just right. I picked up my phone, forced a smile, and took a selfie with the front camera. Appearance anxiety only sprouted after I moved to the big city for college. My roommates Mandy, Zoe, and Cynthia and I went for a night tour of the waterfront. On that jewel box of a street, I saw many real-life Barbie dolls. The girls' makeup was meticulous, so dazzling it was hard to look directly at them. Even when passing close by, the skin I stole glances at wasn't a mask of white powder, but the blow and break perfection I had read about in novels. The different scents on them gave me an illusion I was walking through a cluster of flowers. Later, I followed the girls' lead and learned to apply makeup. In today's internet slang, it was ineffective makeup, nothing more than slightly whiter skin, darker eyebrows, and red lips. But I still thought my beauty had leaped to a new level. It was during this vain and confident phase that I met Ethan Sullivan. In Ethan's validation, I could become even more beautiful. He had described me specifically, "You look a bit like Natalie Portman." After coming home, I frantically searched for photos of Natalie Portman. Disbelieving, I asked the girls, "Do I look like Natalie Portman?" They sized me up one by one. "You actually do. The eyes and brows are very similar." I wanted to say that when school started freshman year. Then they asked, "Did someone tell you that?" I opened my mouth shyly. "Just that guy I met recently." Mandy realized and teased, "Oh, Mr. Sullivan." Back in bed, I sniffled and messaged Jax Jagger, "You up?" In the interval waiting for his reply, I scrolled down my friends list. I had to scroll unexpectedly far. The flood of work messages had washed Ethan Sullivan to the very bottom. Once I removed his pinned status and nickname, he was downgraded to the most ordinary of social outliers. He still hadn't updated his feed. His profile picture was still that beagle. Maybe he had changed his heart to love beagles and no longer border collies. I was always extra careful when peeking at his status to prevent an accidental double tap that would notify him. I had never slipped up, just as I had never made a mistake at work. Just then, a notification from Jax popped up. "Not yet." I switched back. "What time do you actually go to sleep every day?" Jax said. "Depends, but I have to get up early tomorrow." I asked, "What time is your flight?" Jax was probably teasing. "Are you coming to pick me up?" I paused, thinking for a moment. "By the time you land, I'll probably be at work." He seemed surprised. "Huh, were you actually considering coming?" I said. "Just kidding." I was amused by our back and forth. Thanks to being in a relationship before, I was no longer green. I could converse skillfully with the opposite sex. Having left the comfort zone Ethan constructed, I became my own comfort zone. The experience of male-female interaction, which is largely the same everywhere, remained in my deep consciousness like muscle memory, flowing naturally between the push and pull. Jax didn't let the atmosphere cool down. "Anyway, do you want to come see the show?" I opened my phone gallery to find that poster and checked the calendar. "Saturday night?" Jax said. "Yeah," I joked. "Is the ticket free?" "Jax, of course, I'll bring you in." I didn't take advantage of him. This seemed to be inertia in my thinking too. I searched for their show on Ticketmaster, bought one of the few remaining tickets, and sent the screenshot to Jax. Just like Ethan, who had bought plane tickets without a word back then, Jax was shocked. "You didn't have to," I said. "A little support for the boy's career." Jax replied with a crying stream of tears sticker. I went back to that wine-red poster and zoomed in on the title. "Like mist, like lightning, view it as such." I wanted to jump out of this wretched summer. I wanted to hear a summer that left no room for retreat. The live house where the show was held wasn't far from my office. After work, I rushed to the subway without eating. All afternoon, Jax had been intensely rehearsing with his bandmates, so his replies were slow. The last message was a reminder to call him when I arrived. I replied, "Okay," but didn't dial his number to disturb him rashly. The time in the upper left corner of the screen was 19:13. There was still over half an hour before the show started. The outer area was already crowded with people, mostly fashionable and exquisite young men and women. I looked down at my corporate shell, which I hadn't had time to change out of, and started to feel a bit uncomfortable. While touching up my lipstick using the front camera, Jax called via audio. I pressed answer. "Hello," Jax must have heard the noise around me. "You're here," I said. "Yeah, I'm here." Jax said, "Send your location, I'll come get you." He was backstage personnel, so when he walked over as a key branch of the band, he didn't cause any commotion, but that didn't stop my heart from beating faster. I had seen his photos on social media. He definitely belonged to the type who looked better in person because the 3D version of him had more defined features, and his height was more immediate. He wore a simple black tee and black trousers, looking exceptionally concise and clean among the crowd of flashy trendsetters. I walked toward him. "I didn't waste your time, did I?" Jax smiled. "No," he looked at me. "Did you come straight from work?" I said. "Yeah." I suppressed the awkwardness of a first meeting, acting like an old friend I hadn't seen in years. Following him backstage, my gaze was glued to the huge Stussy logo on his back. "Don't you guys have uniforms?" The moment I asked, I regretted it. The question was weird and amateurish. "Mini Dean, you don't have to force conversation." I pinched the web of my hand. Jax looked back and laughed. "We're not an esports team." I nodded. "Yeah, true." Backstage, I met another group of kids. I say kids, but they were really only 3 or 4 years younger than me, yet their crazy energy really made them look like brand new humans fresh out of the factory. One slightly chubby boy with ash green hair was the funniest, performing a grand courtly bow to me with intense theatrical flair. Minnie, Jax introduced him as the band's vocalist, Flip, a total extrovert. I covered my lips laughing and cleared my throat. "I can tell." Jax introduced the rest one by one: guitarist, bassist, drummer, keyboardist. I said hello to each in turn. "We're all about the same age," he said, walking to a styling table to pull a bag from underneath, taking something out and walking back. "Do you want to cushion your stomach first? The show is long." It was a bag of chocolate lava croissants. I shook my head. "I'm not hungry." I wasn't lying. After the breakup, the sensation of hunger had wandered away from my body. Pain had become my newest, most familiar, and most hated friend. I was arranged to sit on a nearby sofa while Jax and his teammates gathered together for final preparations before taking the stage. Everyone looked excited and anxious, condensing into an invisible energy field. Team spirit. I thought of this word in my boredom. When I looked down to check the time for the third time, Jax returned to my side and reminded me, "It's about to start. Do you want to go out front?" I looked up and agreed. "Sure, good luck." Before he went on stage, I squeezed out a dry line of encouragement. Jax still smiled. "Thanks." I confirmed that I still couldn't handle being face-to-face with the opposite sex comfortably. Jax's appearance was no less than Ethan's, and his family background might even be better. But the moment this comparison formed involuntarily in my mind, I knew I had failed completely again. My internal struggle ended when the band took the stage. Waves of screaming surged from all directions. Beams of snow-white light illuminated a small area of the stage. The group of seemingly ordinary boys from backstage suddenly became idols in a temple, wielding ritual instruments, serene and holy. The electric guitar intro rang out, the spell broke, they had expressions, they had movement, and my goosebumps rose in unison to salute and cheer for them. The drums were the heartbeat, the guitar was the blood, the lyrics were the cells. Jumping, surging, rolling. Music, great music, it shattered me, reorganized me, made me come alive. I hadn't heard their songs, but when the grand chorus swept through the venue with the phantom lights over and over, I couldn't help but raise my hands high, open my throat, and follow along out of tune, like a pilgrimage. I couldn't be a dissenter among the believers. Sweat soaked my forehead and back. In the moment of wailing like a banshee until my voice almost cracked, I closed my eyes. Everything from the past with Ethan slid through my brain like a slideshow. Scene by scene, piece by piece, a fleeting glimpse of flowers while galloping on horseback, and I was a dying person reviewing my life. If this journey holds sin, forgive my delusions, like mist, like lightning, not in vain in this world. You were crying. Returning backstage from the intense performance venue, I was still dazed, finding it hard to call my soul back. However, the surroundings had returned to clarity. The green-haired kid and his crew were tearing open fan letters like a troop of monkeys dividing fruit. Meanwhile, the tissue Jax handed over was right in front of my eyes. I looked up and lied. "No," Jax said, "don't be so stubborn." He pointed to his own eyes. "Your eyes are totally red." Embarrassed, I took it, rubbed my eyes, and pushed the responsibility back. "It's just because your show was too moving," Jax replied. Okay. He turned and called out to Flip. Flip looked back. "What's up?" Jax continued passing the buck. What kind of broken song did you sing? You made Minnie cry. Flip was quick-witted and bounced it back. Why don't you comfort her then? I couldn't help but laugh. Jax didn't join their dinner party but walked me out alone. I felt I was imposing and politely declined, saying I could walk by myself and he should go eat late-night food with them. Jax walked by my side. It's the same routine after every tour. Missing one won't hurt. I curved the corners of my mouth in gratitude. Jax asked me, "Which song did you like best?" I thought about it. "The theme song," Jax said. "Like mist, like lightning?" I nodded. "It's a love song." "Which of your songs isn't a love song?" "It's not just a love song." I made a questioning sound, then an affirmative one. "If I remember correctly, the scripture speaks of life. Life is like morning dew and lightning, origins rising and extinguishing, blown bubbles bursting." Jax responded with a yeah. Night and neon flowed over us. Suddenly there was nothing to say. "It's so hot tonight." The harsh summer temperature made me uneasy, especially since the silent baking made the heat even more unbearable and sticky. I was sweating again and couldn't help raising my hand to wipe it. Jax noticed and took out a tissue again. I accepted it gladly, rubbing my forehead. Jax said, "It wasn't this hot in the Great Northwest." I looked sideways. "Did you guys play a show there?" Jax said. "No, but I went there for a vacation during middle school summer break." I asked. "With a tour group?" Jax paused. "How did you know?" I said. "At that age, most people go out to play like that, dragged along by elders." "What about you?" he asked back. "Sharp-witted Minnie, have you been to the Northwest?" His kindness made me ashamed to continue bullshitting in front of him. I admitted truthfully, "I have. I went to the coast with my ex-boyfriend in junior year." Jax raised his eyebrows lightly. "Oh," I repeated his reaction. "Oh." Jax changed his tone particle. Me. Like a rubber ball bouncing between us, we both laughed in unison. I was curious. "Aren't you going to ask more?" Jax said. "Nothing to ask, has nothing to do with me." I agreed. "True. However," he changed the subject, stopping in his tracks. "I have a different question." I stopped too, looking at him. "What?" His gaze moved up from my eyes, lips hooking up. "How long are you going to use that tissue to wipe your sweat?" I froze. If he hadn't reminded me, I would have forgotten I kept rubbing my forehead with the tissue. You know, when people are at a loss, they cycle through some stereotypical small movements to contain their emotions. I quickly put my hand down, clenching the tissue. I looked around and started an impromptu performance. I wonder if there's a trash can nearby. I scratched the area visited many times by the tissue with my finger. My makeup must be ruined beyond recognition. Jax said, "Let me see." I raised my eyes, looking at him again. He had already leaned in slightly close. My breath hitched, and my eyelids flickered nervously. He examined me for too long enough that I was almost trying to figure out if he wanted to kiss me. By the time I gathered the courage to look back, he was already kissing me with his eyes. In Jax's focused gaze, which carried a hint of aggression, that extinguished lamp lit up faintly again. I hadn't dressed up carefully, hadn't compromised or begged for perfection. Just standing here, I had already won favor. Just as he said, it had nothing to do with Ethan. He wasn't the first man to appreciate me, and he wouldn't be the last. I didn't need to pity myself at all, yet I also felt no sense of sufficiency. I quietly looked away, fixing my eyes on the traffic light at the four-way intersection. "I have a question too," Jax asked. "What?" I said. "How long are we going to stand here?" Jax chuckled low. "Well, haven't found a trash can yet." Then he said, "Give it to me." He opened his left hand toward me. I glanced at him and put the paper into his palm. His palm was wide. Tall boys generally have large hands with long, distinct knuckles. He used his pocket as a temporary mini trash can. I glanced there. "Have you ever been in love?" Jax said lightly. "Yeah, I have," I asked. "How did you break up?" Jax seemed to be recalling and finally said, "Forgot." I let out a confused huh. "Do you men really have no concept of heartbreak? Or are you avoiding the answer on purpose?" Jax replied. "Just didn't like her anymore. Just didn't like her anymore. Just didn't like her anymore." I didn't expect to hear the answer that should have belonged to Ethan from another man's mouth. After the breakup, he didn't completely ignore my contact. He blamed, accused, spoke coldly, and politely declined my attempts to get close. Ultimately, it was just because he didn't like me anymore. He offloaded all the responsibility for his change of heart onto me. The streetlights turned into shimmering ripples in my eyes. I commented with feigned lightness. "What an abstract reason," Jack said. "Liking someone is an abstract concept to begin with." I echoed his words. "Love is too, right?" Jack said. "Yeah," I asked again. "Does it hurt when you separate?" Jack said. "Of course it does." I couldn't help but open up, but my ex-boyfriend, he didn't look sad at all. Jax exhaled. "That might be because, before he brought up the breakup, he had already broken up with you." "Is that so?" The grieving phase, the withdrawal from habit, he had experienced it months before me. When he made up his mind to strip himself from this relationship, he was preparing for this moment. So those few months, the months he decided to break up, were all his hypocritical performance, his selfish pity. He had long hovered outside the game, feeding me the dregs of affection, watching me like a laughable, clueless animal. I bit my lip tight, suppressing the emotional upheaval, but I couldn't stop the rude words from spilling out. "Men are trash." Jax lowered his eyes, his tone slightly innocent. Already making sweeping generalizations. Then he panicked slightly. "Why are you crying?" Caught off guard, tears just overflowed, stream after stream, even though I tried my hardest to hold them back. I didn't want to lose composure like this in front of a man who was still half a stranger, especially one with good prospects for development. "I'm sorry." I rubbed my eyes and immediately was pulled into Jax's embrace. I was a bit startled, then felt satisfied. When my senses were filled by his chest, my back wrapped in his arms, the protective shell I struggled to support softened. Suddenly, I was too weak to stand straight. I sighed into the muffled space. "Thank you. Sincerely sorry. Sincerely thankful." Disturbing him with my lack of control, yet wanting to obtain his containment and forgiveness. I was always repeating this terrible version of myself, no matter who I was with. "It's okay," I heard Jax's breathy voice by my ear. "I'm leaving tomorrow. Do you want to stay tonight?" The hotel room was dim, lit only by spotlights in the four corners and the bedside lamp. I sat on the edge of the bed, supporting myself with hands on both sides, as if sitting on the edge of a rudderless deck, a bit lost, thoughts hidden behind a screen, indistinguishable. The sound of Jax showering was like falling rain. Developments were not within my expectations. My intention was release, plus a part of ulterior motives like taking the opportunity to post some photos of dining with a man, enjoying music, putting them on my story for Ethan to see, proving that I was doing fine without him, living a rich life. But after the sudden hug happened, it became clear I still needed a male body, like a demon that had lost its powers, urgently waiting to be filled and comforted. A summer without room for retreat could be in the broad sense or the narrow sense. Boundaries didn't need to be clear, didn't need to be black and white. Since childhood, I hadn't had any out-of-line words or deeds. Even dating was done by the book, upholding one life, one love, one pair. The moment I agreed to Jax, the seeds of rebellion and revenge grew wildly again, paradoxical but exhilarating. Even though I knew this was the root of male vice, Jax showing his true colors. Before entering the bathroom, he turned completely back into a stranger, a strange man, attempting to lean down and kiss my lips. I subconsciously turned my face away. He paused and finally just pressed against my jaw near my ear. I shrugged sensitively, but my lower abdomen reacted slightly. I hated this version of myself, yet also missed this version of myself. After breaking up with Ethan, libido and appetite had drained away together. I didn't love Jax, couldn't even determine if I liked him. But similarly, when intimate contact occurred with Jax, my estrogen would still reignite from the dead ashes. Am I ovulating? I picked up my phone and opened my period tracking app. This was downloaded when I was dating Ethan. Even though he would help track my period and remind me timely, "Babe, your period is coming," and warn himself, I definitely have to behave myself these few days. Initially, he knew very little about girls' periods. But because I was always in pain, he gradually became well-versed in the necessity of ibuprofen and ginger tea, even if the latter's effect was equal to hot water-only psychological comfort. I had said, "Thanks to me, if you date again later, you'll know how to deal with a girl's Aunt Flo." I received a satisfying scolding in return. "What nonsense are you talking about?" And the final result. Still, one generation plants the trees, the next enjoys the shade. Sex was the same. Getting a room with Ethan was on our 1-year anniversary. He had prepared flowers and cake with great fanfare and several different types of condoms. Watching them stacked like mini playing cards on the coffee table, I couldn't help but fall back on the sofa, grabbing a cushion to cover my face, my whole body at ignition point. Just then, Ethan snatched away my shield, his face equally red, leaning over to cover my lips. We were both very green, very clumsy, but equally sincere and focused, tirelessly grinding until we were dripping with sweat. The moment pain pierced through me, I heard Ethan say, "You are mine." I replied, not to be outdone, "You are mine too." Deeply influenced by feminist thoughts in recent years, I gradually became active, familiar, and dominant in bed. The concept of subjective sex was rooted in my body, so much so that right now I was reinforcing it. Sleeping with Jax was just because I wanted to. I hadn't lost anything, certainly hadn't fallen. One invited, one accepted, mutual benefit. Woman becoming man, nothing wrong with that. But Minnie Dean, is this really what you want? My heartbeat gradually accelerated. This urgency was similar to my first time, but completely different. The heartbeat of the first time was pink bubbles popping repeatedly, the thrill of tasting forbidden fruit, the ups and downs of blending like water and milk. What about this heartbeat? The familiar buzzing of cicadas rose from my eardrums. The water sound in the bathroom stopped abruptly. I immediately stood up from the bed and walked straight to the door. I pulled it open and stepped onto the hallway carpet. I didn't stop walking, hearing my breath quickly turn into panting. In the elevator car, I looked down and opened WhatsApp, deleting and blocking Jax in one go. No explaining reasons to him, no need to clarify to myself. I ran out of the bright, flashy revolving door, jumping down the steps. The night rushed toward me, and I sprinted under the night sky. I ran with all my might, exhausted, and started laughing. I shouted wow, ignoring everyone. So this was it. This was what I wanted, a summer sparing no effort. I walked all the way home from the hotel, drenched in sweat. I uninstalled and cleared the social apps too, like burning up short-acting opium. The feeling of relief was addictive, triggering a chain reaction. I started a grand cleaning of my contacts list. I deleted all the tarot readers and astrologers I added after the breakup, including the witch who lit candles and many old classmates I hadn't contacted in ages. I operated fluidly, finally stopping on Ethan Sullivan's name. Staring blankly at his cool avatar for a while, I clicked in, stopping at the interface that had been desolate for a long time. A strange impulse welled up. Half of it was, I wanted to ask him, "How have you been?" I guessed he would definitely ignore it, or reply politely and distantly with a few words. The other half was, I wanted to delete him. My finger involuntarily tapped on the red words, "Delete contact." The warning popped up immediately at the bottom of the screen. Deleting contact, Ethan will also delete chat history with this contact. Deleting him would make me seem overly caring, like a deserter. Not deleting him, the memory will stay here like a mural. Days later, I was confused again. Even though my self-esteem returned, and I realized I fundamentally didn't need sexual relationships to fill the void, what exactly had I lost, and what did I need? I didn't process anything, instead scrolling up through the chat history. I paused at the sentence that once crushed me, "You only pay lip service to love." This time, self-blame didn't run out. Instead, I felt detached. The further I scrolled up, the more I felt my conversation with Ethan was comparable to talking to a bot. Just daily reports, scattered photos. When I told him about various people and things at work, he would quickly filter them out and divert attention. "It's okay, babe. I ate at a place from the South today. It was delicious. I'll take you next time." "Stop thinking about this. Let's voice chat. I'll sing for you." Nothing a couple of games can't solve, log on. The final direction of all conversations was unchanging. "Love you, babe. Good night." I realized with a start my words weren't wrong. I wasn't being acerbic or mean. I was just stating facts. For the past year, he really only paid lip service to love. He framed his inability to empathize and powerlessness to solve things as flashy, unsubstantial desserts. When the textual whipped cream collapsed, the empty filling was revealed completely. He didn't want to face my problems or care about my situation at all. Even when I was exhausted and needed rest, I still cooperated with him to keep past habits, like video and voice calls rain or shine every day. Several weekends, I confessed I was so tired I just wanted to rot at home, but he still dragged me out, just because I couldn't refuse a lover appearing with flowers and a smiling face. I dried my hair because I simply didn't have more free time to dry my hair. And him, he would only conclude I was distracted, occupying our couple time. He loved me in his way, simply because he needed to. He blocked me from seeing myself and grafted himself onto me, demanding the charge of love. When I became malnourished, he quietly withdrew, seeking a new host. In the final chapter of our story, he notified me of the end, leaving the unsolved mystery to me, sentencing my crime. But when I moved from the defendant's seat to the audience seat who defines the standard of love, Minnie Dean, you are not guilty of this. It wasn't just him giving, retreating. While he spent time and energy on you, you were also spending time and energy on him. You are good at introspection, and due to your upbringing, you aren't that soft, but you aren't ugly and certainly not terrible to him. It was because you were compressed for too long, you were suffocating and tired, so you were prone to anger. Yourself was throwing a tantrum at you. The outburst was a protest. She just hoped you could reclaim a little bit of yourself. You were fully occupied by love. You spared no effort to maintain love and hysterically tried to salvage love. Are you enjoying it or being swallowed by it? Minnie Dean, can you look at yourself more? Can you accept yourself? Even if she isn't that polished and perfect, has unsightly marks, even if she once wanted to be a deserter of the relationship. I had a dream. In the dream, I bumped into Ethan at the supermarket. He appeared to be middle-aged, darker than before, with lines of time on his face, wearing a smoke-gray trench coat. I froze behind the shopping cart, then smiled sweetly, greeting him. "Hello," Ethan looked at me. "Haven't seen you in a long time." Then he looked to my side. "Is this your husband?" I was surprised, following his gaze, only to realize a man stood beside me holding a child with one arm, his face blurred. I looked back at Ethan in terror, and he was still smiling politely. The next day, I recorded this dream in detail in my notes, even though it acted out experiences that hadn't happened yet. But the content of the dream made me realize my subconscious was already separating from Ethan. Our futures would no longer intersect. I was accepting separation. During lunch break, I ate with two slightly older female colleagues. They were chatting about domestic trivia, from breast pumps to fresh air systems. I couldn't participate, so I listened quietly. One girl named Zena suddenly asked me, "Minnie, how old are you?" I looked up. 25. "Wow, still so young," the other colleague sighed. I put down the spoon scooping soup. "In my hometown, that's the watershed between being wanted and unwanted." Zena waved her hand dismissively. "Here, nobody would say anything even if you were 52. She asked. "Where's your hometown?" I named the place. They both indicated they hadn't heard of it. Zena said, "My sister is the same age as you." I glanced at her. "Biological sister?" Zena said. "Yeah, hasn't been home in ages." I asked. "Where did she go?" Zena. "She's been leading tour in the Great Northwest, travel groups." I blinked. "Is she a tour guide?" Zena replied. "Yes and no. She's not with a travel agency, she works solo. Just those small-scale custom groups of a few people, and theirs is an all-girls group." "Girl group?" The other colleague was amused by her wording. "People would think it's some youth producer 101 audition." Zena raised an eyebrow. "Why wouldn't it count?" While slacking off at my desk in the afternoon, I opened the browser and searched for pictures of the Northwest. One after another, vast pastures stretched boundlessly, emerald ridges undulating, pine forests clustering, connecting with the azure sky. I subconsciously glanced at the sky, outside the floor-to-ceiling window. This was the first time I looked at the sky after the breakup. The weather was excellent, a wash of blue, almost no clouds, only the exhaust trails left by airplanes, like a white crayon casually swiping across pure blue paper. Under a similar summer sky, I had tapped Ethan's arm, reminding him to look up. "Hey, look quickly, the sky is so beautiful." Ethan glanced along. "Wow, it is," then immediately looked down at the navigation on his phone. I said, "Did you look carefully or not?" Ethan said, "I looked." I said, "You didn't look properly at all." Ethan was puzzled. "Don't we see it every day?" I said, "but today is especially blue." Ethan waved his phone at me. "But the road to that restaurant you want to go to is also hard to find." I pouted, saying no more, walking sullenly. Ethan sensed it. While walking, he leaned down to look at me. "You're being a bit unreasonable, Miss Dean." I opened my mouth. How long would looking at the sky for a few seconds delay us? Ethan tucked his chin, putting on a playful stance. Starting again. I wasn't starting again. I just wanted to share. But why did the sky I saw need to pass through his eyes to count as truly beautiful? Without hesitation, I lowered my eyes, found Zena in the work group chat, and messaged her privately. "Zena, is it convenient to send me your sister's contact?" This time, I would go see the scenery alone. The benefit of choosing a foreign enterprise was probably the reasonably generous annual leave, enough for me to escape the concrete jungle for 10 days. The flight to the Northwest departed at 10 in the morning. This was my first time experiencing such a long flight, arriving at the hub airport after 4 in the afternoon. Following the route provided by Zena's sister, I dragged my luggage non-stop onto the high-speed train heading to the Highlands. The best sunset is in the window of the 442 Express. She left a romantic guideline in the message. I got on this train as wished. The snow mountains under the setting sun and the white windmills were framed in a painting. Every second was different. Every second was new scenery. Zena's sister was named Melody Gale, and the girl leading the team with her was named Charlie Young. 2 names so free-spirited they seemed born for the wilderness. When we met at the lodge, they enthusiastically helped me with my luggage, asking, "Tired, sitting in the car for over 10 hours?" I shook my head and said, "It's okay." At dinner, I met another mother and daughter pair fetching hot water on the first floor. They were from Boston. The girl was named Lucy Quinn, the mother had bobbed hair and a kind face. We exchanged glances, then truly got to know each other in the van the next day. Lucy Quinn had just finished her college entrance exams and was going to New York for university. Coming to the Northwest was a graduation trip the mother and daughter decided on a whim. Not just my graduation trip, but my mom's too. She sucked on a jelly pack, shaking her head, using my allowance money to congratulate her on graduating from the identity of mom. I smiled. "You're very generous." Lucy grinned. "That's because my mom is very generous too." Lucy's mom was named Susan Quinn, maintaining a loving attitude of she plays, she smiles towards her daughter. She sat in the inner seat, putting down the cloth she used to wipe her lens, looking past her daughter at me. "And you, Minnie, why did you come here?" I pressed my lips together, not hiding it. "Heartbreak." Charlie in the passenger seat turned around at the words. "Heartbreak? Heartbreak is good. We've hosted so many heartbroken girls, they all get purified after going back." I turned my eyes to her. "Really?" Charlie looked certain. "Really?" She lifted her chin. "If you don't believe me, look out the window." I turned my head, and a sharp squeal of admiration from Lucy sounded behind me. The sapphire lake under the snow mountains entered my eyes abruptly like that a gradient of jelly blue. When the wind blew, the lake's surface resembled a ruffled velvet blue curtain, shimmering with gold. I stared unblinkingly, about to be sucked in, my heart oscillating with the waves. "Life should be wasted in places like this," Lucy sighed. Susan Quinn said, "How can this count as wasting?" Her camera clicked twice, and she sighed regretfully. "Ah, can't capture it." Of course you couldn't capture it, just like the golden evening I tried hard to record yesterday. The hanging sun lay between the Cyan Mountains and the fields, horses galloping toward me. I held my phone recording the whole time, ignoring storage space, but watching before sleep, it lacked the overflowing emotion of the moment. The best lens in the world can't compare to eyes and heart. That night, we stayed in a local herder's yurt, very rustic. A creamy white tent, surrounded by a fence of wooden branches. A little black dog with bright eyes kept circling us begging for food. Melody tossed a large lamb bone to it, and it immediately jumped up and caught it skillfully. Charlie praised, "Nice catch." Miss Quinn smiled and asked, "Can a Northwest dog understand your foreign language?" Melody said, "Doesn't matter if he understands, knowing I'm praising him is enough. The emotional value is delivered." Because her pronunciation was standard, I asked curiously, "Did you study abroad?" Melody looked at me. "Yeah, I did my undergrad at NYU." I said, "No wonder." Melody asked, "What about you? Where did you go to college?" I said, "Right in the city." She smiled, wiping grease from her fingertips with a tissue. "My sister asked me to look out for you." "Me?" I pointed to myself, laughing. I'm 25, not 15, no need for special care. I glanced at Lucy battling in the canyon on her mobile game. Taking care of Lucy makes more sense. Melody followed my glance. Lucy has her mom to take care of her. My sister said you're quite introverted at the company and seemed in a bad mood recently. She told me to show you a good time, really enjoy it. I froze. Xena, how did she know I was in a bad mood? Melody shook her head. That I don't know, I'll ask her later. Charlie leaned over too. What are you chatting about? I said. Nothing much. Charlie draped an arm around my shoulder. Still hurting over the heartbreak? I denied. No way. Truth be told, surrounded all day by fertile plains, forests, snow mountains, and lakes, I barely thought of Ethan, even though the Northwest was once one of our dream destinations. My attention is all on Sapphire Lake, especially the wind by the lake. Charlie giggled. The wind by the lake is huge, blows your brains out, I said. Thanks to the wind, the lake lives. Wow, Minnie, you're like a poet. Charlie stared at me with round eyes, then hugged her legs, resting her chin on her knees. To be honest, I became a tour leader because of heartbreak too. I was surprised. Charlie lifted her eyelids, speaking decisively. I thought I wouldn't get better, would be consumed internally by memories forever. But in fact, time and the wind on the grasslands can blow everything away. Dating is nothing, Charlie lifted her head. I know saying this now sounds hollow, meaningless, but dating really is nothing. Melody nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes I feel dating is pretty anti-human. Charlie said. Isn't marriage anti-human? Melody tugged at Charlie's upper arm sleeve. Dating is to take me and Charlie, for example, we're good friends. One day I'm in a bad mood, Charlie notices, Charlie comes to care about me, I can frankly tell Charlie, yeah, I'm in a bad mood. But strangely, if my boyfriend asks me, sometimes I want him to guess. I'd even speak in opposites for this. No, I'm not in a bad mood. If he didn't pursue it, didn't care, I'd get angry. People get inexplicably twisted in romantic relationships. Friendship is much more generous and direct. It is, I agreed deeply. Men's insight isn't that strong anyway, definitely not better than ours. Charlie rested her chin in her hand. Feels like placing higher demands on someone whose comprehension is already deviated from yours. Melody said. Don't they say intimate relationships are mirrors of the family of origin? I tend to think it's because emotions weren't or were rarely cared for in childhood, repressing needs, that we turn out like this, becoming used to hiding, becoming desperate to be seen. Charlie patted my back. Actually, you can try. I looked sideways at her. Try what? Charlie said. Explicitly expressing needs, speaking your mind. If you always rely on others' eyes to discover yourself, that self will be very tired, because everyone just wants good reviews, and eventually, you'll deviate from your true self for more good reviews. Melody suddenly chopped the air with her hand, saying abruptly, "Damn this East Asian environment." We all tacitly understood the gold content of this summary. I raised a question. Watching you guys date seems like stumbling along too. I wonder, does nourishing love really exist in the world? Charlie sighed. Dunno, I just feel. Humans put the word love on too high a pedestal. Melody held her head. Who invented dating? Charlie chimed in. Yeah, who were the first couple in the world? How did they end up? I pondered for a moment. Probably Adam and Eve. And then, kicked out of Eden by God, labor for life. Damn, Charlie cursed. No wonder we humans have it so hard, working like oxen and horses. The three of us laughed back and forth. When twilight completely caged down, I walked out of the yurt. The night air was cool as water, rustling insect sounds in the grass blades. Looking up, there was the starry sky. To better observe the stars, I let myself lie down in the grass. My grand gesture yielded much. The Milky Way, usually only seen in part, instantly exploded like shards of daylight, scattering, held up by sinking and floating mountains, clustered, lovable, within reach, glimmering in the thick darkness. Suddenly, a face replaced the galaxy. It was Lucy's mom. She leaned down to look at me, concern in her smile, holding my windbreaker in her hand. You came out without putting on a jacket, and lying here, I'm afraid you'll catch a cold. I quickly sat up, took the jacket, and said thanks. She was about to lift the curtain to go in, looked back to see me lying back in the original spot, and reminded me. The ground is very dirty, cow and sheep droppings, probably bugs too. I smiled. The stars look prettier this way. If I could see such a starry sky every day, I would even be willing to become a grain of sand, wordless and heartless, facing the stardust. Is that so? To my surprise, the mother walked back to my side and lay down just like me. Let me take a look too. Then delightfully, hey, it really is. Probably hearing Miss Quinn's exclamation, the tour leaders and girls all ran out of the tent. The sight of the two of us, lying side by side, might have been weird. They looked from above and laughed, finally saying no but doing yes, following suit in unison. We just sank into the wild grass like that, wrapped by the quiet and brilliant universe. I closed my eyes. Charlie was right. It turned out everything was just wind, merely passing through me. After returning from the Northwest, the girls from that group became new friends on my social media. Miss Quinn's attention to me was probably no less than to her goddaughter. She often sent me links to emotional chicken soup for the soul, asking if I wanted her to send local specialties like roast duck or salted duck to me. I politely declined with a smile, while feeling moved. This was a detailed care I hadn't felt from my mother. The photos from the Northwest were carefully crafted by me into a 9-grid collage on my feed. This was my first update since the breakup, flowing lake water, stretching grasslands, and the blue sky, pine crowns holding up huge white clouds. I only regretted that the image capacity wasn't as large as other platforms. I put the photo of me holding a little lamb, laughing in the grass, right in the center. This was a candid shot by Charlie. She said I looked like I had been tickled by the wind. I told Charlie on WhatsApp, "This is my best life photo." Charlie replied, "Don't speak too soon, you're still young, there are countless best moments ahead." Because of my introverted personality, I rarely posed with free, big movements in others' lenses, usually just peace signs and constrained smiles. Ethan had said, "You look better when you laugh." But I thought he was lying to me because I had 2 obvious tiger teeth that slanted outward slightly. In middle school, seeing girls with braces in class, I would feel envious because I didn't dare mention it to my parents. The tiger teeth became 2 thorns I didn't want to show, or rather, a flaw. On the first day reporting back to the company to cancel my leave, Zena said I had tanned. I touched both cheeks with my hands. "Yeah," she added, "but you feel lighter." I asked. "Really? Is it because I walked too much every day and lost weight?" Zena said. "Probably." The next morning, I stepped on the electronic scale to check. My weight hadn't significantly decreased. On the contrary, because of all the carbs and returned appetite in the Northwest, I was 2 pounds heavier. I double-checked twice, finally clasping my hands together, saying to myself, "Good, good." The trip seemed to be a turning point. My lost attention returned like migratory birds flying south, rebuilding vitality on the long, desolate island. I dug out my idle planner and recorded the post-breakup coping plan I had previously envisioned, intending to execute it accordingly. Gym, reading, hiking, travel around the country Northwest, done. Learn a language besides these, I added. Watch a movie alone, visit a park, go to a cafe or bakery on the weekend. Not having spare money for a gym membership, I updated the workout app on my phone to the latest version and set a 4 times a week fitness plan for myself, 1 anaerobic. 1 aerobic, alternating, just completing half an hour was enough. By the 2nd week of strict adherence, my morning run pace had improved significantly. After following a 40-minute jump session on my iPad, I only had 2 feelings: so tired and so good. Compared to exercise, I liked reading more. Exercise brought release, while words could lead one into a field of absolute calm, probably the flow state I once pursued. I realized that detached from the gender relations that required maintenance and collision, and consuming massive mental energy on heartbreak, I actually had so much free time and mental power. This was incredible. After half a month of practice, I shared my realization with Melody. Turns out without dating, I have so much time. Melody said, "It's that you possess more disposable self." I said, "So regretful, I should have done these things as soon as we broke up." Melody was like a psychologist and also like an elder who had seen through the world. "Trust me, you didn't have the mind to do these things back then. Your reactions after the breakup were actually normal, phased. Allowing yourself to sink is also protecting yourself." She added, "Minnie, you're really badass. You've been saving yourself, whether doing things you found unreasonable or, like now, doing things you think are meaningful, boosting energy. Everything happens at the note it should happen. There is no right or wrong." Finally, she sent me a sentence. words from a counselor when her mental state wasn't good during her studies abroad, always believe in the power of time. I was being smoothed by time. In the third month of the breakup, autumn began to dye the city yellow. My pain was fading, becoming unclear, unreal. Even Ethan Sullivan as a person was covered with a layer of hazy tracing paper. The good, the bad, what left. What stayed my memory was no longer tampered with, nor reinforced, but became distant. I still hadn't quit the habit of checking Ethan's social media, but compared to deliberate attention, this was more like a random act out of boredom, and the frequency dropped sharply. The first month, a dozen times a day. The second month, a few times a day. Now 3 months in, I only remembered to check once a week. Just like the frequency of dreaming about him, I almost never dreamed of him anymore. Regretful? A little. Regret it? No. The heaviest negative emotions had disappeared completely. The fluctuating water surface gradually leveled. My expectation changed from, will he come back to find me, to, it doesn't matter if he comes back. And at this time, approaching October, my post received a long-lost like from Ethan Sullivan. He liked that set of photos from my trip to the Northwest in late July. Like skipping stones, small ripples began to agitate in my heart. I stared at that notification, motionless for a long while. Suddenly, an emotion I had discarded for a long time was repatriated. Disgust. I couldn't believe until death that I would feel nauseated by someone I once loved deeply and was attached to. 2 months ago, I might have been moved to tears by this like. He cares about me, he's still secretly watching me, he still hopes to reconcile. I might have even eagerly contacted him. How have you been? I miss you so much. But now I felt disgusted. He turned from an indispensable person into a selfish, detestable intruder, attempting to crush the order and territory I had struggled to rebuild. He was destroying my peace, harboring bad intentions. Strong stress almost made my chest tight. I opened the mindfulness app on my Apple Watch, using the abdominal breathing method I learned recently to skillfully process this feeling. Cycling through a few times until my heart rate returned to normal levels, the nausea was also suppressed. You still have emotions toward him, this isn't true letting go. I'm not afraid anymore, because one day I will truly let go. My heart was talking to itself. I was never ruins, just someone who had just experienced winter. I didn't need to show him everything about my future to win or lose, because I had already accepted separation from him. I had stopped my dependency and unwillingness. I no longer prayed for complete, accurate answers and reasons. But if I let him exist in my friends list, I would be like this now, passively enduring trauma reminders time after time out of the blue. So during this not short holiday, I cleaned up everything around me regarding Ethan Sullivan, the gifts he gave me, our photos, and finally, his contact. The chat history of tens of gigabytes I was once most reluctant to part with, the most intuitive and lengthy carrier of our 5-year relationship. I savored it for a night, no longer immersed. Ethan Sullivan, including all emotions and things surrounding him, was no longer a fairy tale, nor a documentary. They became chapters I flipped back through casually. I finally understood the phrase, when memories fade to yellow. The moment I agreed to delete, I couldn't help but smile, saying to myself, "Congratulations, Minnie Dean." In the 5th month of the breakup, I developed a habit of keeping a diary, or rather, a serialized done list of daily bits and pieces, positive events completed by me alone. They connected continuously under my pen, letting me gradually take back control of life. My world revolved again, happening around me. I moved to a new rental, assembled a new sofa according to the IKEA diagram, pasted clean white film on the modeled windowsill. Fresh flowers returned to the glass bottle by my bedside, and the Polaroid wall in front of my desk became my independent personal photo book. If I really needed to share, Melody was a good choice. She and I became friends who chatted regularly. She told me it snowed in the valley and sent a pure, vast white new world. I would also post new desserts from afternoon tea shops I discovered to her, telling her, "If you have a chance to come to the city, I'll treat you to cake." This New Year's Eve, I received her perfectly timed New Year blessing, and I replied with greetings. She asked curiously, "Did the ex send you a message?" I paused, exiting the app to check SMS, then returned to the chat box, telling her, "No," Melody said, "both my exes sent me blessings, ha 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 ha." I smiled. Look at you being smug. Melody didn't tease anymore, genuinely caring. But seriously, are you a bit disappointed? Because of her question, I carefully discerned for a while, uncertainly saying, maybe yes, maybe no. Of course, I was stubborn as always. Besides, I didn't send one to him either. Melody said, not sending is right. I sighed, smiling. It's kind of embarrassing. It's been so long, yet I can't give an accurate answer, telling you I'm completely indifferent whether he sends me a New Year blessing or not. Melody said, not at all. Is not achieving completely no emotion embarrassing? Emotions and feelings aren't some preset, standardized products. They can be plants growing and spreading or withering. You can take your time. Since deleting Ethan, I hadn't shed a tear for over 2 months, but Melody's words made my nose uncontrollably sour. I quietly read those few lines many times, grateful. Thank you. Approaching the holidays, I went back to my hometown after a long absence. It was a warm winter this year. There was almost no rain in the Delta. When the rideshare arrived home, it was deep night. My mom didn't mind the trouble of picking a large basket of homegrown greens to cook noodles for me. Touched by frost, they were fresh and sweet in the mouth. I bit into the fried egg, occasionally answering Old Man Dean's usual inquiries: income situation, job prospects, and so on. Mom cared more about my relationship status, asking if I had a boyfriend. I usually blocked my parents on social media posts. They knew nothing of Ethan's existence. But this time, I chose honesty. I said, I dated one in college. We broke up 6 months ago. My mother's lips parted slightly, then closed. The dinner table was heavy for a moment. Dad comforted, career first, family later, besides you're not that old. I nodded. During the relationship, I hadn't failed to imagine that 1 year, 1 month, 1 day, I would bring Ethan on a long journey to my hometown to meet my parents, drawing up a contract for our future. But I also felt inferior. Would he, living in the glamorous city for so long, despise this mediocre village and house from the bottom of his heart, even if I knew he certainly wouldn't show it on his face? I couldn't stop such gloomy conjectures. When my straightforward father sized him up, when my cautious mother tried to please him, how would he perceive this version of me outside what he had seen? Fortunately, it didn't matter anymore. I leaned back in the chair, rejoicing that I didn't have to face these things anymore, and started laughing at my own sensitivity and suspicion. Finally, I turned to look at the full-length mirror in the corner. In it was a smiling, clean face, half her hair tucked behind her ear, eyes very gentle, carrying gentle understanding. She watched me like that, and I watched her too. At midnight, the fireworks outside roared like warfire, rising and falling. Various chat groups were filled with sincere or ingratiating wishes. Mom knocked on the door, calling me to go out and watch the fireworks. I shouted back, not going. After a good while, the noise subsided, and Father called me from outside to go to the main hall to burn incense and worship ancestors. I followed the old rules to the living room, lighting 3 sticks of incense, devoutly praying for myself. Peace, health, strength. Life in the following 6 months seemed to be themed around these 3 words. I lived quietly, worked quietly, followed the routine, with no lack of Easter eggs. I made new friends at the company, started mentoring interns, and went on dates with 2 or 3 guys. Their temperaments varied lively, dull, but none were the right choice. Melody often gossiped about my anecdotes, curious about my criteria. What kind do you actually like? I said. Someone comfortable to be with. Melody said, you have to know, love is inherently hard to make people comfortable. I replied, if it's uncomfortable at the start, it will only make people more uncomfortable in the future. Melody agreed, makes sense. Actually, I wasn't too clear what the standard of comfortable was. Maybe this description was just a shield for me to avoid unnecessary social interaction. It was abstract enough, hard to define, and concrete enough, experience paramount. In these 6 months, I didn't see Ethan again. Occasionally bored, I would imagine his current life, like the water vapor left after thick fog rises. My association was the hazy color blocks behind the window. He should be graduating soon, overwhelmed by journals, and most likely had a new girlfriend. He was disappearing faster than even my emotions. One spring night, I realized with a start that I completely couldn't recall Ethan's face. Searching the photo album was futile. The parts about him had been completely cleared over 6 months ago. In that instant, a cold weightlessness surged up. That feeling wasn't emptiness, but I had unknowingly accepted a person missing and dying in my spirit. I shared my discovery with Melody, giving it a new name. Rather than missing and death, it's better to say penetration. Melody's confused voice came from the earphones. Penetration? I said. Yeah, penetration. Lost its shape, but it melted into my body. In the early stages of the breakup, I was always resisting and excluding these emotions, this person, as if they were tumors. But once I absorbed them, they became my nutrients instead. A new me emerged, seeming to transcend the old me. I mean, it's not necessarily correct that only positive things are worth absorbing. Terrible things can be absorbed too. They could transform into the mint-green wilderness of the borderlands, the coffee-scented sky of the city, the frozen salmon slice text in books. Then digested silently. The first week Robot Dreams was released was also about a full year since I broke up with Ethan. The nearly 2-hour silent animation made it impossible to lose focus for a breath. I sat alone in the last row watching, pulling out tissues several times to wipe my eyes. The movie constituted the countless versions of me over the year. I was once the robot, abandoned on the uninhabited coast, totally ignoring a broken heart, love seemingly an innate mission, the desire for reunion woven into every dream, and the end of the dream was always trying to knock on the dog's door. I was also once the dog, trying to cross obstacles, retreating behind the window after several failures, waiting bitterly for a turning point. I weakly and helplessly shifted affection, finding new hobbies, making new partners, then weeping while holding the limbs of memory in the dead of night. Later, I became the raccoon, repairing and stitching myself up, no longer trapped blankly in snow and sand piles, no longer relying on others' care and love. I stood up again, a cassette I loved listening to installed in my body. When the music started, that song we once shared could allow me to dance to my heart's content alone in the attic. Walking out with the crowd leaving the theater, I immediately looked down to text Melody, wanting to tell her how good, how moving, how worth watching this movie was. While buried in typing, someone suddenly called me. Minnie Dean. The voice wasn't soft, brushing past my ear. I turned in astonishment, looking left and right, finally seeing Ethan Sullivan outside the men's restroom. After a daze, I confirmed it was him again and started judging his changes. He had dyed his hair. The dark brown color made his complexion look better than before. The dimension of a year isn't long placed in a lifetime. His face and figure were still as before. My lips moved, making no sound. I should give a response, but what to say was a difficult problem for me. The reason for the difficulty wasn't surging emotions, but a thorny unfamiliarity making me hesitate. I had simulated scenes of reuniting with Ethan several times before. I thought my heart would thunder, my eyes burn, but when it really happened, a resistance burst out inside me, stopping me from moving forward and also stopping me from escaping. It really is you. He walked closer to me. Hi, the greeting poured from between my teeth, unexpectedly completely unstilted. Haven't seen you in a long time, he said. I nodded, echoing his words. Yeah. He was still as skilled and at ease socially. Who were you buried in messaging? Almost didn't recognize you. My hand holding the phone dropped to my side. A friend? I smiled. It must have been the kind of smile I saw in the mirror at home during winter break. It surfaced naturally, quietly and friendly, responding to the person in front of me. Ethan said, "You deleted me." The words held a hidden accusation, but also accompanied by familiar whining. I couldn't answer, let alone explain. Finally, I said, "Yeah, there was no need for reasons anyway. Doing okay. This past while." He looked at me from his height, caring while seemingly judging me, along with everything around me, this version of me traveling alone after leaving him. But who ruled that loneliness is loss and freedom can't be victory? Pretty good. I was a bit detached, my words gradually becoming mechanized and formulaic, like facing every uninvested client at work. "And you?" Ethan said. "Same old." I glanced at the women's restroom door, guessing he wouldn't be waiting here for no reason. "Waiting for a girlfriend?" He hesitated. Sort of. I repeated his words, couldn't help curving my lips up. "Developing?" He nodded. I said, "Congratulations." Ethan didn't dwell on this topic, taking his phone out of his pocket. "Wanna add me back?" "No thanks." The rejection slipped out instantly, completely unthinking. Even I was a bit surprised. Ethan was obviously stunned, his eyes deepening a few shades, no longer those polite smiles floating on the surface. Finally, he looked over. "Be well, Minnie Dean," I said. "You too." Coming out of the restroom, I looked around. Ethan's figure was gone, his new partner naturally unknown. The remaining curiosity was quickly blown away by the breeze outside the building. I walked in the crowd, turning my head to see the projection on the glass wall. She was very complete, very clear, her steps light and definite. The melody from the end of the film unconsciously rang in my mind. I curved my lips, humming along, turning to step toward the intersection. In the golden afterglow, the red light went out, green light on. The end.